Chapter 1259. Let's go, let's go. Lu Shi patted Lu Li's shoulder and whispered to his ear, "The world is full of wonders. Brother Lu, don't worry. We are here. Nobody can hurt you." Lu Li nodded gratefully. What Lu Shi and Holy Princess did just now had improved Lu Li's impression of them. Lu Li thought about it and said, "Don't be upset. I am confident that I can lead you out of this level. But I need time." Lu Shi and Holy Princess looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with vigor, especially Holy Princess. Her face was glowing, and her beauty was out of this world. Lu Shi's lips twitched. Eventually, he could not help but ask, "Brother Lu, how confident are you?" The inhibition formations of illusion here must be of a very high level. It was not that Lu Shi and Holy Princess did not trust Lu Li. It was just that they had some understanding of inhibition formations. Before they came, the elders of the two clans introduced the situation of the tomb of King Luna to them. They also took out some secret history and told the two how to pass each test. They even gave them some supportive treasures. However, the two of them could not do anything about this test. Lu Li was young. He seemed to be younger than Lu Shi and Holy Princess. Even if he could not be much older. The study of inhibition formations was profound. It was already not easy for Lu Li to become an immortal. How could he have a profound understanding of inhibition formations in a few decades? Unless, of course, he had a master in inhibition formations in the divinity. Lu Li smiled. He was relaxed, which boosted their confidence. 50%. Of course, it will take at least a year or two. Okay. Lu Shi and Holy Princess looked at each other. They were relieved. Lu Li said he was 50% confident, so it must be at least 70%. At the very least, they could be teleported out of the tomb of King Luna after this level. Warriors of the two sects had said that after passing the third level, the Unreal World, there would be a portal that could take them out directly. Of course, they could go on if they wanted to. There were 7 or 8 levels after the tomb of King Luna. After every 2 levels, there would be a portal that would take them out of the tomb of King Luna. That being said, the further he went, the more dangerous it would be, and the treasures would be better. If he could make it to the last level, he would be able to get the entire tomb of King Luna and the inheritance of King Luna. All the treasures would be his. Holy Princess and Lu Shi no longer had the confidence to take the treasures from the tomb of King Luna. 30% of their disciples had perished in the last level. Would the rest of them be able to find the treasures in this level? The two of them had been trapped for almost a year, and they almost went crazy. They were deeply afraid of the tomb of King Luna, and they just wanted to get out as soon as possible and return to their sect. They kept on searching and cracking more formations. Another 13 days had passed. Lu Li and the others had no idea how far they had traveled. What saddened Holy Princess and Lu Shi was that they had met many disciples of the two sects in the past 13 days. However, most of them were dead, and 2 of them had lost their minds. Only 5 people were lucky enough to survive, and of these 5 people, 2 were from High Heaven Pavilion. "Brother Lu, let's stop after another 5 days." Lu Shi and Holy Princess checked the number and realized that 4 or 5 were missing. Even if they could find them, they would be dead bodies. There was no need to waste more time. Sure, Lu Li nodded. He was losing his patience after searching for such a long time. If it were not for the sake of Lu Shi and Holy Princess, he would have stopped a long time ago. 5 days was not a long time. Lu Li led the team forward and kept on searching. 5 days passed by quickly. The result was not satisfactory. They found another 4 people, and all of them were dead bodies. Those that could enter the tomb of King Luna were all young disciples of different sections. Young people were not mentally strong enough. They had not been through enough, and their willpower was not strong enough. It was hard for them to survive such a horrifying formation of illusion. Never mind. Lu Shi patted Lu Li's shoulder. "Thank you, Brother Lu. You don't have to look for the others. Just focus on cracking the formation of illusion. Come to us if you need anything. We will do our best. I do have something that I need your help with." Lu Li made a request after some thoughts. "Do you have any special materials?" If my spirit creature can evolve, it will be faster to crack the formations. Special materials? Lu Shi, and Holy Princess were surprised. Then, without any hesitation, they took out many strange materials from their rings and piled them on the ground. Holy Princess said generously, "Young Master Lu, take whatever you need. Well, you can have them all." Lu Shi said generously, "Take them all. Don't worry about whether they're useful or not. You can have them all." "No need," Lu Li said to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy reached out her tentacles from Lu Li's feet into the two piles of materials and began to check. "Master, I can use these." A moment later, Blood Fairy's joyful voice suddenly came to Lu Li's mind. Lu Li was cheered up. He used psychic power to check Lu Shi's pile of materials. Eventually, he noticed a dark blue crystal the size of a head. "Are you sure? What about the other materials? Are they useful to you?" Lu Li asked at once. "This one," Blood Fairy said with certainty. "I feel that absorbing the energy in the crystal will be beneficial to me. Master, get it for me." "Okay." Lu Li was delighted. He walked to the pile of materials and took out the dark blue crystal. "Guys, put away the other materials. This is the only one that is useful." "Young Master Lu, what is this?" Lu Li asked with delight. "Crystal of icy soul," Lu Shi said with a frown. "This stone is mainly used to improve inhibition formations. It is rare, but compared to the other materials, it is nothing. Why do you, a goblin, want the crystal of icy soul?" Lu Li could not answer this question. He did not care if the crystal of icy soul was precious or not. As long as it could help Bloodvine evolve, it would be a treasure. Looking at Lu Shi with great interest, Lu Li asked, "Young Master Lu, can you give me the crystal of icy soul?" "Take it." Lu Shi waved his hand. "This is inside the tomb of King Luna. If we were outside, I could find a way to get you 2 or 3 more. "Thank you, young Master Lu." Lu Li cupped his fists in gratitude. Then he said to Holy Princess, "Please take a seat here. I need to cultivate for a while. In at least half a year, or 3 to 5 years, I will crack the formation. I cannot guarantee that I can do it. I will try my best." Holy Princess and Lu Shi nodded. At the very least, sitting here would not be like before. Everything would be hazy and they could not see anything. That feeling could drive them crazy. What was more, Lu Li's words had given them hope. A few years of cultivation here would not be too difficult. Lu Li nodded to them again. He took out the wicked bead and dashed in. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess looked at each other in astonishment. Some disciples of the two sects were just as confused. They stared at the wicked bead. Some were burning with excitement. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess had interspatial artifacts, and so did 3 others. However, in the formation of illusion, their interspatial artifacts could not be used, and they could not enter the world inside. Lu Li took out a bead randomly and disappeared into it. Naturally, Holy Princess and Lu Shi were shocked. Is this a holy artifact, or one of the best of the supreme relics? Lu Shi murmured. He blinked and exclaimed, "Holy Princess, this Lu Lin has so many secrets. Can it be that he has a powerful background?" Chapter 1260. Since Lu Li could be in the tomb of King Luna, he must be an immortal from the southern divinity. Immortals from other places would not come all the way to the tomb of King Luna. There were 8 major sects from the 72 sects at the southern divinity, some major sects, some hidden forces, and forces from prefectures. Therefore, even Holy Princess and Lu Shi did not know the elite disciples of the major forces. Some of the major forces would travel on behalf of their sections. For example, Holy Princess and Lu Shi would often travel on behalf of the younger generation of their sections. That being said, some of the elite disciples of some sects or forces would not show themselves in public. Instead, they would be trained in secret. As the hidden elites of the sects or forces, they could be put to good use in the future. Lu Li could solve the path of life and death, the mountain path occupied by the Godbiters, the inhibition formations of this level, and the wicked bead, an interspatial artifact. Luli had so many secrets that Lu Shi and Holy Princess could not help but wonder. However, if Luli was from a major force, why would he tolerate Ling Faidu on the path of life and death? Elite disciples of major forces would have their pride. They might not bully others, but Ling Faidu had gone too far. If Luli were from a major force or a sect, he would not be so kind. I don't understand. Holy Princess blinked in confusion. The more she could not figure it out, the more mysterious she found Luli. Women were born to be nosy. She became more and more curious about Luli. Luli did not know that the wicked bead had piqued Lu Shi and Holy Princess's interest in him. He did not know that other interspatial artifacts could not be used. If he did, he would not have dared to enter the wicked bead in front of so many people. Blood Fairy, how long will it take you to absorb the energy from the stone of icy soul? Inside, Luli began to talk to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy's tentacles had reached into the crystal of icy soul. She said after a while, I think it will take at least 3 months. The energy in the stone is profound. I need to absorb it bit by bit. Okay, let me know when you are done. Luli nodded. He left Bloodvine alone and used psychic power to check the inner hall. Out of instinct, he saw Little White. Little White? Luli suddenly thought of something. Holy Princess was right outside. Could she heal Little White? Buzz. Luli dashed into the inner hall and went out with Little White in his arms. Holy Princess and the others were staring at the wicked bead in a daze. They did not expect that Luli would come out again and with a piece of charcoal. Holy Girl Snow. Luli turned to Holy Princess. Holding Little White in his hands, he said, This is my little beast. He was struck by thunderbolts and is on his last breath. Can you save him for me? Oh. The Holy Snow Goddess scanned Little White with her thoughts. After a while, she frowned and said, Let me try. I can't guarantee anything because this spirit beast has seriously injured the life original spirit. Buzz, Holy Princess took out a small bottle. The vines in the bottle stretched out and wrapped around Little White. The branch gave off a faint green light, and Little White's body, which had some injuries, healed at a visible rate. Even the charred skin had peeled off, revealing smooth and tender skin like that of a baby. All right. Luli could clearly sense that Little White's life force was growing. He was excited. The fundamental principle of life was powerful and had the best healing ability. After a moment, white fur grew out of Little White, which amazed Luli. Little White's life force was growing stronger as well. Luli could put his mind at ease. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Holy Princess took back the vines and said apologetically, Young Master Lu, your beast is fine now, but I don't think it will wake up anytime soon. Its life original spirit has been damaged. It will not be easy for it to wake up. Lu Li's smile froze. Holy Princess, are you saying that it will never wake up? Not exactly. Holy Girl Shui thought for a while and said, If we can feed it a divine medicine, it should be able to wake up quickly. But that herb is rare and precious. Not even the Palace of Snow Mountain has it. Young Master, if you can get your hands on it, I don't think a complete recovery will be a problem. What herb? Luli was excited. Holy Princess's eyes lit up and she said, Purple flame leaf. Purple flame leaf? Lu Shi thought about it. His mouth twitched. I think purple flame leaf is a supreme herb. A supreme herb is worth at least tens of millions of divine sources. Is it worth it for such a small beast? Yes, Luli said with certainty. For me, this beast is not a beast. He is more like my younger brother. For him, I will find a way to get hundreds of millions of divine sources, let alone tens of millions of divine sources. Thank you, Holy Princess. Hundreds of millions of divine sources. Lu Shi curled his lips. Holy Princess and those from the Palace of Snow Mountain were stunned. Though they were from the Palace of Snow Mountain, it was difficult for them to get tens of millions of divine sources, let alone hundreds of millions of divine sources. Brother Lu, pardon me for asking. Lu Shi could not hold back his curiosity. He waved the warriors from Pavilion of Misty Drizzle to step back. Then, he turned to the Palace of Snow Mountain. The disciples of the palace of Snow Mountain were sensible enough to step back. When they were a couple of miles away, Lu Shi asked in a low voice, "Are you from some major force?" Major force? Lu Li was confused. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Brother Shi, why do you ask? Truth be told, I have only ascended not long ago. I'm not even qualified to be a citizen." What? Lu Shi and Holy Princess were taken aback. They were just wondering which major force Lu Li was from. They did not expect that he had just ascended. Did Lu Li lie to them, or was there really such a strange story? An immortal who had just ascended could solve the inhibition formations in the tomb of King Luna? He had supreme or even holy relics. How could disciples of super sects like them accept this? Holy Princess looked into Lu Li's eyes. Somehow, she believed him. If he was lying, then his acting skills were incredible. Holy Princess paused for a moment and said to Lu Shi, "Young Master Lu, how can you miss out on such a talent? If it were not for the fact that the Palace of Snow Mountain does not accept male disciples, I would have introduced young Master Lu to our sect." Ha ha ha. Lu Shi laughed. Looking at Lu Li with sincerity, he said, "If Brother Lu is willing to join the pavilion of misty drizzle, I will try my best to help him." Brother Lu, you are a rare talent. Thank you, young Master Shi, for your kindness. Thank you, Holy Princess. Lu Li grinned. Then he said, "Let's get out of the tomb of King Luna first. If I want to join the pavilion of misty drizzle, please, young Master Shi, recommend me." Of course, of course. Lu Shi nodded. "I am sure the seniors in our sect will be happy to have a talent like Brother Lu." Lu Li clasped his fists and went back into the wicked bead. At any rate, he must solve this inhibition formation and get out. The 72 sects were well known. That being said, Lu Li did not particularly want to join them. He preferred to go to the Swords Mountain because Emperor of Heaven Reverse, the human ancestor of the Heaven Reverse universe, was there. P.S. Chapter 5 is up. Chapter 1261. Lu Li went back to the Wicked Bead to read more books on inhibition formations. Blood Fairy was absorbing the energy from the crystal of Icy Soul. Holy Princess and Lu Shi sat outside to cultivate. Luckily, Lu Li had solved the illusion. Even though it was a plane, it was better than being in a blur. In the original environment, most people would feel flustered, suffocated, and anxious after staying for a long time. It was very easy for them to suddenly get separated while walking. If they were alone, they would lose their minds and even have the urge to commit suicide. Also, Lu Li had given them hope. They could cultivate with peace of mind. For them, cultivating here was no different from cultivating in their sections. Time flew by quickly. Time always flew by during cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. During the 3 months, it had been quiet. Nothing unexpected happened. Today, the peace was finally broken. From a distance came some muffled footsteps. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess were alarmed at once. They used psychic power to check. Ling Faidu. Lu Shi, pulled a long face when he saw who it was. The coldness on Holy Princess's face grew colder. That being said, they were all disciples of the 72 sections. They would see each other all the time. They could not show their disgust toward Ling Faidu on their faces, nor would they turn against him openly. The two had to stand up. Ha ha ha. Brother Shi, how are you, Holy Princess? Ling Faidu laughed from a distance. His laughter was filled with pride and forthrightness. Given Ling Faidu's handsome appearance and temperament, those who did not know him would think that he was an elegant young master, a man of the highest quality with unparalleled grace and character. Lu Shi and Holy Princess thought so as well when they were not familiar with each other. However, the two had no intention to greet Ling Faidu. They stood where they were. When Ling Faidu walked over, the two nodded to greet him. Since Holy Princess did not say anything, Lu Shi had to say, "Young Master Ling, why are you smiling so happily? Is there something good?" "Of course there is. Why else would I be so shameless to meet you?" Ling Faidu said with pride. "I have found some clues and figured out a way. In less than a month, I will be able to solve the illusion and find the exit. Really? Lu Shi, and Holy Princess looked at each other. In the depth of their eyes, there was doubt. Clearly, they believed it. The Cabinet of Cloud was not good at inhibition formations. Ling Faidu was a flamboyant person, and he often traveled around on behalf of the young generation of the sect. How could he have the time to study boring inhibition formations? Lu Shi replied casually, "Young Masterling, you are impressive. We are waiting for your good news. If you can bring us out, I will put up a stall at the Tower of Immortal for 10 days to thank you for your kindness." Well said, well said. Ling Faidu waved his hand proudly. He looked around, and soon, he noticed the wicked bead. His eyes lit up slightly, and he clicked his tongue in wonder. Whose spatial god artifact is this? This is at least a transcendent grade divine artifact. Lu Shi and Holy Princess smiled in embarrassment. Was the fox showing its tail? The implication of Ling Faidu's visit was clear. He was here for the wicked bead. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess did not say anything. Ling Faidu said with a smile, "This must be Brother Lu's interspatial artifact." TSK. Brother Lu, you are a man of few means. I didn't expect you to have such an artifact. Lu Shi forced a smile, but said nothing. That being said, he moved closer to the wicked bead. If Ling Faidu dared to take the wicked bead, Lu Shi would not sit by and do nothing. It was not only because Luli had helped him a lot, but also because Luli was their hope to leave the tomb of King Luna. Holy Princess was on guard as well. The smile on Ling Faidu's face froze. He looked at Lu Shi and Holy Princess and said, "Guys, I will be able to crack the formation in a month at most. I can only do it for the time for several incense sticks to burn. If you want to go out with me, then come with me." Those from the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle were not convinced, but Lu Shi and Holy Princess did not. Lu Shi thought about it and said, "Young Masterling, go ahead and crack the formation. When you are about to crack it, send someone to inform us. We will cultivate here for a while." Holy Maiden Xue nodded slightly and did not bother to say anything else. Ling Faidu touched his nose and shrugged. "Okay, I will send someone to inform you later. Goodbye." Ling Faidu waved his hand and left with the others. A female disciple of the Palace of Snow Mountain asked with hesitation, "Holy Princess, if young Master Ling can crack the formation, we Holy Princess sneered. She shook her head. "Have you ever seen a pig climb a tree? Ling Faidu cannot do the right thing, but he is good at using crooked means. Do you think you can trick us away?" Lu Shi shrugged. People with different beliefs cannot make plans together. With that said, Lu Shi sat down next to the wicked bead. Clearly, he was going to guard the wicked bead. Holy Princess walked over as well. She sat on the other side of the wicked bead to cultivate. Since the two leaders had made up their minds, the disciples of the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and the Palace of Snow Mountain did not overthink it. They sat down nearby to cultivate. Some people gathered together and whispered, since Lu Shi was a good friend of Holy Princess, the disciples of the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and the disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain were on good terms. Some of them were even flirting with each other. What they did not know was Ling Faidu did not go far. He was tens of thousands of miles away from them. When he arrived, he took out many formation stones from his interspatial ring. Glaring at the Cabinet of Cloud coldly, he said, "4 of you, go and guard in 4 directions. Inform me as soon as anyone comes. The rest of you, help me build the formation of 7 sacrifices." Formation of 7 sacrifices? They looked at each other, speechless. One of them asked, "The formation of 7 sacrifices is used to kill and trap people. Young Master Fei, why are you building the formation of 7 sacrifices? Is it to deal with Lu Shi and Holy Princess?" One of them blinked and said with concern, "Young Master Fei, we are all from the 72 sections. If we are exposed, we will all be in big trouble." "Shut up." Ling Faidu threw them a cold glance and said, "Of course I will not kill Lu Shi and holy princess. I'm just trying to trap them. The one I want to kill is Lu Lin. Lu Lin? Some of them looked at each other, feeling uncomfortable. One of them said, "Young Master Fei, Lu Lin saved our lives. I don't think it is a good idea to kill him." "What do you know?" Ling Faidu snorted. "That punk has a treasure that can crack the formation. However, his realm is too low. I don't think he can use the treasure to its full potential. Therefore, we must have the treasure so that we can crack the formation and get out. Otherwise, you will be trapped here for 1,000 years." While Ling Faidu was speaking, he was filled with killing intent. The disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud dared not to say another word. Ling Faidu was the leader of this mission. As long as he did not target Holy Princess and Lu Shi, the disciples would not mind. Set up the formation. Chapter 1262. Louis did not know what was going on outside. Little White's wounds were healed. Little White no longer needed to be fed with divine source. Even though Little White had not woken up yet, Lu Li was relieved. He focused on studying the inhibition formations. After such a long time and focusing on formations of illusion, Lu Li's knowledge of formations of illusion was improving rapidly. He had a feeling that when he finished reading all the books on this level, it would not be difficult for him to solve the formation of illusion for this level. Blood Fairy did not stop after 3 months. The energy in the Stone of Icy Soul was too much. Or maybe Blood Fairy needed time to absorb the energy. Therefore, she did not send any messages to Lu Li. Lu Li did not stop since Blood Fairy did not send any messages. He continued to read the other books. Another 20 days passed. Something happened again. A disciple from Cabinet of Cloud hurried over. He reported to Lu Shi and Holy Princess with delight. "Young Master Shi, Holy Princess, Brother Fei is about to solve the inhibition formations and go to the next level. He asked me to tell you that if you want to go out, you must do so at once. Otherwise, as soon as we go out, the inhibition formations will be restored." "They are solved?" Holy Princess and Lu Shi were taken aback. They could not tell if it was true or not. Did Ling Faidu really have a special way to solve the inhibition formations? Those from the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle were excited. After all, they had been trapped here for such a long time. As long as they could solve this level, they could leave the tomb of King Luna. Nobody wanted to be trapped here for 1,000 years. For them, 1,000 years was too long. Guys, time is of the essence. If you want to go out, come with me. If you don't, you can stay here. The disciple from Cabinet of Cloud said impatiently, seeing that no one was moving. He was about to leave. Disciples from Pavilion of Misty Drizzle stopped him and turned to Lu Shi. After all, Lu Shi was the leader and he must give the order. Lu Shi thought about it for a moment. He slapped the wicked bead. Lu Li was alarmed. He dashed out from the wicked bead. Lu Shi explained to Lu Li in a low voice. Lu Li frowned. Could Ling Faidu really solve the inhibition formations? Did he have some treasures to solve inhibition formations? "Brother Lu, do you want to go with me?" Lu Shi asked. "No." After some thoughts, Lu Li shook his head and said, "Guys, you go ahead and have a look. I won't go." Holy Princess blinked and said, "Young Master Lu, it's okay. I don't think young Master Ling is that petty. We will help you." Lu Li refused firmly because he did not believe that Ling Faidu could solve the formation. Most importantly, he now had a certain degree of confidence in breaking the formation. Since he could rely on himself, why should he shamelessly beg others? "Are you leaving or not? If you're not leaving, I'm leaving." The disciples of Cabinet of Cloud grew impatient again. Those from the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle were losing patience. They began to urge Holy Princess and Lu Shi. "All right." Lu Shi patted Lu Li's shoulder and said, "Brother Lu, let's go and have a look. If anything happens, we will come back to you right away." Holy Princess nodded to Lu Li. Together with the female disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain and Lu Shi, they followed those from the Cabinet of Cloud and ran into the distance. Blood Fairy. Lu Li stood there and thought for a moment. He sent a message to Blood Fairy, who replied, "Master, I am here. Have you consumed all the energy in the crystal of Icy Soul?" Luli asked. Almost 4 months had passed. Theoretically speaking, the energy should be gone by now. "I will be done soon." Blood Fairy's voice transmission sounded a little excited. "But Master, I might need to sleep for a few days after devouring. I think I might evolve." "Okay." Luli was intrigued. If Blood Fairy could evolve, then Luli wouldn't even have to do anything. Blood Fairy could solve the formation of illusion at this level. "Okay, let's set up some small formations." Luli took out several formation stones and threw them around randomly. He could not set up a big formation now, but he could set up some invisible ones. Otherwise, all the books he had read from Tianlingzi would have been wasted. Luli set up some small formations nearby. They were not of much use, but once someone came, they would be triggered. Luli would know immediately that someone was here. He went into the wicked bead and turned it into a stone. He flew it to a pile of stones so that it would not stand out. He could miss it if he was not careful. Luli went back to reading. Blood Fairy was about to evolve, which boosted Luli's confidence. With him and Blood Fairy working together, they would have a much better chance of solving the formation. Luli went back to cultivation. However, in just 3 days, he was alarmed. The small formations he set up outside were triggered. He thought Lu Shi, and Holy Princess had come back. He used psychic power to check, only to see someone that surprised him. Ling Faidu. There were quite a number of people outside, over 20. All of them were from the Cabinet of Cloud, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. No wonder, Luli thought quickly. At this moment, he suddenly understood many things. He had been doubting that Ling Faidu could solve the formation. He was right about this. Ling Faidu said that solving the formation itself was a scheme to lure Lu Shi and Holy Princess away. Ling Faidu wanted to kill Luli. He wanted the blood vine, the wicked bead, and he wanted to vent his anger by killing Luli. What to do? Luli thought quickly. After a moment, he sent a message to Blood Fairy, but she did not reply. She must have fallen asleep. Over 20 people. If only Ling Faidu were alone. Luli could use Warlord Skeleton Qing Wujin and the remaining 5 blood crystals. Luli was confident that he could kill Ling Faidu, but there were over 20 people. Luli was troubled. Once he killed Ling Faidu, he would have to kill the others. If he let them escape or sent a message back to the Cabinet of Cloud through some special means, he would be hunted down by the entire Cabinet of Cloud. Hunted down by one of the 72 sects? This was not God of Wings or Yin Tiangang. It was said that the 72 sects were more powerful than the prefectures. By then, Luli could run to the ends of the world and be hunted down. The thing was, if Luli did not do anything, Ling Faidu would not let him go. Ling Faidu would attack the wicked bead, crack it, and then kill Luli. Would Luli just stand there and let Ling Faidu kill him because he was afraid that the Cabinet of Cloud would come after him? Bang! The wicked bead trembled. Luli used psychic power to check. Ling Faidu and the others were closing in. Ling Faidu took out his halberd and made a move. Wait for Blood Fairy to wake up. Luli checked the energy of the wicked bead. If the more than 20 people were not attacking at full force, the wicked bead should be able to survive for 10 days or half a month. By then, Blood Fairy would have woken up. Chapter 1263. Lu Lin. Ling Faidu said, "I know you can hear me. Come out and let's talk. I don't think it's good to fall out with each other, right?" Luli didn't respond. He knew that if he did, he wouldn't be able to stall for time. He had to pretend that he didn't hear anything. Rip! Ling Faidu swung his halberd. A ray of dark golden sword light whooshed on and landed on the wicked bead. Lu Lin, don't be so shameless. Ling Faidu sneered. You think I cannot crack the bead? There are so many of us. If we attack together, how long can your bead last? Luli said nothing. Ling Faidu pulled a long face. He walked over after some thoughts. A ray of dark golden light enveloped the wicked bead. He was trying to dissolve the wicked bead. That being said, it was obvious that he did not have the skills of God of Wings. An hour later, Lu Li noticed that the spiritual connection between him and the wicked bead was not weakened at all. Ling Fida noticed this as well. He stood up and stepped to the side. Then, he ordered coldly, "Attack and break the bead." Rip! Ling Fidu took the lead, and the others all aimed at the wicked bead. After a round of attacks, Lu Li was taken aback. The energy in the wicked bead was running low. At this rate, he could not survive for another 4 or 5 days. Let's wait for a day. Lu Li did not have the courage to send message. He had to let Ling Fidu and the others attack. He was sensing the energy of the wicked bead at all times. On the off chance that the wicked bead was about to be cracked, he would send a message in time to negotiate. Blood Fairy. Every 2 hours, Lu Li would send a message to Blood Fairy. The deaf Taoist stood next to him, and so did the warlord skeleton Qing Wujin. They were ready to risk their lives. Half a day later, the energy in the wicked bead had decreased by 10%. Lu Li showed no emotion, but he was getting impatient. Who knew how long Blood Fairy would be sleeping? According to Lu Li's plan, as long as Blood Fairy woke up, he could at least ask her to reach out her tentacles and turn the world into a blur. This way he could trap all the High Heaven Pavilion disciples, and then find an opportunity to kill them one by one. Either you don't kill. Once they attacked, not a single High Heaven Pavilion disciple could escape. They must all be killed. This way, High Heaven Pavilion wouldn't know about this, and this way, he would be able to preserve his life. A day had passed. The energy in the wicked bead had been reduced by more than 20%. Still, Blood Fairy had not woken up. Lu Li waited patiently. Outside, Ling Fidu and the others had been attacking. It was not that Ling Fidu had never seen a supreme relic before. Considering the strength of his attacks and the over 20 disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud, the bead would not last more than a few days. Another half a day passed by. Lu Li could not wait any longer. He sent a message, "Who is attacking my bead?" Finally can't take it anymore? Ling Fida sneered. He waved his hand to stop them and said, "Lu Lin, it is me. Come out. I have something to discuss with you." Lu Li was not an idiot. How could he go out and court death? With a hint of anger, he sent out a message, "Young Master Ling, we have no enmity between us. I even helped you break the seal, didn't I? Why did you attack my pearl? Are you repaying kindness with evil? Cut the crap." Ling Fidu swung his halberd and said coldly, "Either come out, or I will crack your bead and force you out. The choice is yours. If your relic is cracked, it will be troublesome to repair it. What for? Get to the point." Lu Li tried to buy more time while calling for Blood Fairy in his mind. "Nothing serious." Ling Fidu raised his eyebrows. "I am confident that I can crack the formation, but I need to borrow 2 items from you. Let me borrow your bead and that red vine. I will return them as soon as I am out." Ling Fidu put on a ferocious face. Clearly, he was going to take Lu Li's wicked bead and blood vine. Lu Li sneered to himself. He did not sound angry. He said coldly, "Something is wrong with my spirit. She is still sleeping. Holy Princess and Lu Shi know this. I think she will wake up in a month. Even if you want to borrow it, you will have to wait for a month." "Ha ha ha." Ling Fida laughed and said with mockery, "Lu Lin, don't think I am an idiot. If you want to borrow it, I will have to force you. I will give you the time for 1 incense stick to burn." Lu Li said nothing. It'd be good if he could buy the time for 1 incense stick to burn. What he lacked the most was time. When Blood Fairy woke up, everything could be solved. Soon, the time for 1 incense stick to burn passed. Ling Fidu asked, "Have you made up your mind?" Lu Li replied, "Give me some more time. I will tidy up. But, young Masterling, how can you guarantee my safety? Do you all have to take an almighty oath?" Ling Fidu raised his eyebrows. Was Lu Li really going to give up his treasures? If Lu Li was willing to hand over the treasures, then Ling Fidu wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. As to whether to kill Lu Li or not, that was not the point. What was more, if Ling Fidu didn't kill Lu Li, others could. How could Lu Li survive after he left the tomb of King Luna? "No problem," Ling Fidu said generously. "As long as you give me the bead and your spirit, I will guarantee your safety. I can even take an almighty oath." "All right." Lu Li's tone softened. After a pause, he said, "Let me tidy up. Give me 4 hours." 4 hours was neither too short nor too long. Ling Fida nodded. He waved his hand to let the others scatter. He winked at Ling Fidu, and the two of them left. 4 hours passed. Ling Fidu stood up and said, "Time is up. Come out. I can take an almighty oath that I will not hurt you." Luli did not respond. It seemed that he had fallen asleep. Ling Fidu shouted again. Luli did not respond at all. Ling Fida flew into a rage. Clearly, Luli was stalling. They had been fooled. "Attack!" Ling Fida bellowed. A group of people came from the distance. They surrounded the wicked bead, ready to attack again. Right at that moment, the entire world suddenly glowed. The scenery changed. The wilderness was gone, and everything became hazy again. Luckily, they were in a group. Otherwise, many people would be lost in the hazy world and would be separated again. "How dare you!" Ling Fida used psychic power to check the wicked bead. There was a blood-red tentacle. Ling Fida would be an idiot if he still could not tell that Lu Li was behind this. "Attack!" Ling Fidu yelled in rage. The wicked bead flew up and into the distance. Ling Fidu told the others to go after the wicked bead. However, what happened next shocked Ling Fidu. The more than 20 people were with him. However, after a few steps, someone would disappear. Gradually, there were fewer and fewer people around him. Oh no, this bastard can control or alter the formation of illusion. Ling Fidu pulled a long face. He did not know how Lu Li controlled or altered the formation of illusion, but he was certain that this was Lu Li's doing. Lu Li must be up to something by separating the group. Ling Fida did not know what to do. He had to keep going after the wicked bead. Thousands of miles later, the wicked bead fell to the ground. The world in front of them was a barren land. Then, the scenery changed, and everything became hazy again. Ling Fidu kept on chasing. After the time for one incense stick to burn, he realized that everyone around him had disappeared. The wicked bead stopped and floated in the air. Lu Li's voice came. "Ling Fidu, I didn't want to kill you. A sin brought upon by nature can still be avoided. You asked for it." Buzz. Chapter 1264. Ling Fidu was an elite among the young generation of the Cabinet of Cloud. At the age of 31, he was ranked over 300,000 on the list. It was said that the Cabinet of Cloud was going to groom him as a future supreme warrior in the divinity. Everything pointed to the fact that Ling Fidu was talented and he was powerful as well. Therefore, Lu Li used 4 blood crystals on the warlord skeleton at once, trying to kill Ling Fidu within 4 moves. Lu Li had always been like this. He would not make a move, but when he did, he would not show mercy. He would kill his enemies. This skeleton. The moment Ling Fidu laid his eyes on the warlord skeleton, he felt chills all over his body. He didn't think this skeleton was a skeleton, but a mighty warrior from the divinity. The skeleton was ferocious. The entire skeleton was like an invincible weapon, showing off its sharpness. Swish! As soon as the warlord skeleton came out, it made a move. It dashed toward Ling Fidu in a blur. It was so fast. Also, Ling Fidu was too close to the wicked bead. Out of instinct, Ling Fidu wanted to move to the side. However, all he saw was a blur, and the warlord skeleton was already in front of him. The skeleton hand with a black glow reached for his chest. Piss off. No wonder Ling Fidu was a warrior on the list. His reaction was fast. God of Wings did not even have time to react. A white armor appeared over his body at once. The halberd in his hand was glowing in 4 colors of gold, white, red, and black. He hacked at the skeleton's head with the halberd. If Lu Li were the one to take the blow, he would be killed. He would not be able to survive it, even with the supreme relic armor. The aura of this halberd was too terrifying. It felt like a huge mountain was pressing down on them, giving them a sense of powerlessness and suffocation. Unfortunately, the warlord skeleton did not have a soul. It could not feel the pressure. The skeleton hand did not stop and continued to reach toward Ling Fidu. Supreme relic armor. Lu Li's psychic power was locked onto Ling Fidu. He was upset to see that the skeleton hand was bounced off when it touched the armor. Luli had thought that Ling Faidu, as a young elite of the Cabinet of Cloud, might have a supreme relic armor. However, the warlord skeleton could not crack it. If they could not break it, they would be in big trouble. Letting Ling Faidu go would bring them endless troubles. Later on, Ling Faidu would mobilize the Cabinet of Cloud to hunt him down. No, the next second, Ling Faidu suddenly shouted. Lu Li's soul trembled. The skeleton's hand was bounced off, and then it stabbed at Ling Faidu's chest again. This time, the skeletal hand suddenly turned into a shadow and pierced into Ling Faidu's chest. Bang! Luckily, Ling Faidu's halberd came down in time, and the warlord skeleton was knocked back dozens of feet. Lu Li glanced at the war god skeleton and felt completely at ease. The warlord skeleton was not harmed by Ling Faidu's fierce attack. Its bones glowed in a dark light, as if they were made of many relic weapons. Indestructible. Blood Fairy, go and help the war god skeleton. Lu Li had experienced countless battles in his life, so his ability to grasp opportunities was very abnormal. Seeing that Ling Faidu was spitting out blood and that there was a river of blood under the armor, he knew that Ling Faidu was badly wounded. Phew! The moment the warlord skeleton was knocked back, Lu Li had flown over in the wicked bead. Once again, the warlord skeleton rushed over and arrived at Ling Faidu almost at the same time as the wicked bead. Buzz! The wicked bead glowed as the immortal's body came out and smashed at Ling Faidu's head. Out of instinct, Ling Faidu turned to the immortal's body. Naturally, he was attracted by the strange appearance and horrifying energy of the immortal's body. The warlord skeleton had arrived. Not good. Ling Faidu sensed a fatal danger in his soul. He was badly injured, and he knew that he could not survive this strike. He took out a bead in a flash and shouted, Lu Lin, stop, or I will crush the bead of memory. My father will immediately see this scene, and if you kill me, you won't be able to escape Sky Tower's pursuit. Kill! Lu Li was determined. He gave the order to kill the warlord skeleton and the immortal's body. The immortal's body landed a heavy punch on Ling Faidu's head. The warlord skeleton's hand became a shadow again and pierced into Ling Faidu's chest. Bang! The bead in Ling Faidu's hand exploded. At the same time, Ling Faidu's internal organs were crushed. The immortal's body's fist landed on Ling Faidu's head. A surge of strange energy entered Ling Faidu's head, worsening his injuries. Qing Wujin, aim at Ling Faidu's head. Lu Li shouted to himself. The warlord skeleton's hand reached toward Ling Faidu's head. Ling Faidu was punched by the immortal's body, and there was a strange energy invading his head. Before he could react, the skeleton's hand pierced into Ling Faidu's head. The next second, Ling Faidu's soul was crushed. No! Ling Faidu shouted hysterically. Then, the relic armor, interspatial ring, and halberd came off. His soul was crushed. Not even an almighty god could save him. Ling Faidu dead. Whoosh! The wicked bead flew over and put away the warlord skeleton and the immortal's body. Then, it took Ling Faidu's body, armor, halberd, and interspatial ring and flew away. Feya! At the same time, in the White Hang Mansion at the Southern Divinity, there came a cry of sorrow from the Mountain of Cloud. A powerful warrior flew out from a huge palace, filled with sorrow and anger. Feya, did something happen to young Master Faidu? Many disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud felt their hearts skip a beat when they saw the middle-aged warrior's sorrow. Did Ling Faidu go to the tomb of King Luna? Was Ling Faidu killed? His father suddenly cried out in grief and sorrow. Was Ling Faidu killed? Something big is going to happen. Many disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud were solemn. At the same time, they were furious. The 72 sects had their own dignity. Anyone that dared to kill disciples of the 72 sects would face a life-or-death outcome. Not to mention that Ling Faidu had a special identity. Ling Faidu's father was just an average warrior in the Cabinet of Cloud. But his grandpa was one of the 3 founding members of the Cabinet of Cloud. Grandpa Ling was a super mighty warrior in the divinity, one of the top 1,000 on the list. When Ling Faidu's grandpa was angry, the entire southern divinity would be stirred up by a storm of blood. Anyone that dared to mess around in the Cabinet of Cloud would be punished by Ling Faidu's grandpa. The middle-aged warrior flew to the back of the mountain. When he arrived at a residence, he dropped to his knees and sobbed. "Father, Faidu is dead. He was killed in the tomb of King Luna." "What?" The space in the cave trembled. Then a red-haired old man in a black robe appeared out of thin air. The old man did not seem to be particularly horrifying. However, the space around him was twisting as if he was a stove that could set the air on fire. There seemed to be flames dancing in his eyes. The look in his eyes was cold. He was like an enraged beast. He asked, "Who is so bold? Disciples of the other 7 sects?" "I'm not sure. I only saw a headless body and a skeleton. It must be someone's puppet." Chapter 1265. The warlord skeleton is so strong. He can kill Ling Xian with his supreme relic armor. This must be a piece of treasure. It is a pity. I don't have enough blood crystals. In the tomb of King Luna, Luli flew away in the wicked bead. He was still excited. Looking at Ling Faidu's body, Luli exclaimed. Ling Faidu was ranked over 300,000 on the list, and he had killed him. Did that mean he could be among the top 300,000 on the list? With 4 blood crystals, Ling Faidu was killed, and a supreme relic armor and a relic weapon of an unknown rank were obtained. There must be many treasures and divine sources in the interspatial ring. Luli felt it was worthwhile to kill a top disciple of the Cabinet of Cloud. Destroy the body. Luli ordered the Deaf Taoist and moved the Deaf Taoist and Ling Faidu's bodies to the outer hall. Luli remembered Ling Faidu said to crush the bead of memory. Gradually, Luli calmed down. Ling Faidu would not lie. Cabinet of Cloud must have learned about how Luli killed Ling Faidu. I must kill everyone from Cabinet of Cloud as soon as possible, pass this level, and run. Soon, Luli made up his mind. He must kill all disciples of Cabinet of Cloud to better conceal the information. When he left the tomb of King Luna, the immortal's body, the wicked bead, and the warlord skeleton must not be exposed. Otherwise, Cabinet of Cloud would target him. I wonder if I can join the pavilion of Misty Drizzle. Can they protect me from Cabinet of Cloud? Luli was troubled by the thought that once he was exposed, Cabinet of Cloud would hunt him down all over the world. Cabinet of Cloud was too powerful. The possibility of him being exposed was too great. Whoosh! Luli decided not to worry about too much for now. He would go and kill all the disciples of Cabinet of Cloud first, one step at a time. At this point, it was pointless to be overcautious. Blood Fairy, target all the disciples of Cabinet of Cloud nearby and kill them one by one. Luli ordered Blood Fairy. The immortal's body came out. Blood Fairy had evolved after consuming the energy from the crystal of Icy Soul. Her ability to crack inhibition formations was greatly improved. She used her tentacle to check and said to Luli, "There are 8 disciples of Cabinet of Cloud nearby. Kill." Luli ordered. The Deaf Taoist had destroyed Ling Faidu's body. Luli sent the Deaf Taoist out to work with the immortal's body. Luli dared not to show his face now. The wicked bead and the immortal's body being targeted was not that important. After all, too few people knew about it. If he were to be locked on, he would definitely not survive for more than half a month. Therefore, he dared not to show himself and let the immortal's body and the Deaf Taoist do the work. Both the immortal's body and the Deaf Taoist were powerful. The Deaf Taoist had consumed 3 pieces of red flake wood and could be as powerful as prefecture warriors. He must be more powerful than the average disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud. With the immortal's body and the Deaf Taoist, the remaining disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud should be eliminated easily. As expected, the immortal's body and the Deaf Taoist flew over and attacked together. The immortal's body fended off a disciple of the Cabinet of Cloud, while the Deaf Taoist sneaked up from behind. The immortal's body cooperated and killed the disciple in an instant. Continue. Luli flew the wicked bead to put away the corpses, the relic armors, and the interspatial rings. At the same time, he began to dissolve the interspatial rings and check the contents carefully. He wanted to see if there were any spiritual imprints of powerful warriors in the treasures to avoid being tracked. The immortal's body and the deaf Taoist worked well together. The immortal's body was strong enough to withstand any frontal attack. Those disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud had been separated. They were wandering around in the blurry world, filled with fear. Naturally, their reactions and abilities would be weakened when they were ambushed. It was not surprising that they were killed by the immortal's body and the deaf Taoist. What was more, the disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud were wearing average divinity, which was not strong enough to withstand the attacks from the deaf Taoist and the immortal's body. In a moment, 8 disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud had been killed. Blood Fairy reached out her tentacles to sense the inhibition formations nearby. Soon, she found 4 or 5 people. She led the deaf Taoist forward while Lu Li stepped back in the wicked bead. The Cabinet of Cloud was in chaos. All the disciples that went to the tomb of King Luna had left their jade talismans of life in the sect. After Ling Faidu's death, more disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud died one by one. An hour later, the jade talismans of life of the disciples that went to the tomb of King Luna were mostly destroyed. Only 2 disciples survived. Including Ling Faidu, the Cabinet of Cloud had sent over more than 50 disciples. They were all below 100 years old, the elites of the young generation. Now, almost all of them had been wiped out. Not only Ling Wanjian, the founding patriarch of the Cabinet of Cloud, was enraged. The chief of the Cabinet of Cloud was alerted as well. The chief ordered Ling Faidu's father to bring 5 mighty warriors and hundreds of warriors to the tomb of King Luna. At the same time, all efforts would be made to find the murderer. The 72 sects were the top forces in the divinity. The death of Ling Faidu and the others was not a trivial matter. The reputation of the Cabinet of Cloud was at stake. This time, no matter who it was, even if it was Lu Shi or Holy Princess, the Cabinet of Cloud must kill without mercy. Otherwise, the reputation of the Cabinet of Cloud would be destroyed. All of them. In the tomb of King Luna, Lu Li had put away the immortal's body and the deaf Taoist. All the disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud nearby were killed. Lu Li had gained quite a lot. The relic armors and weapons aside, the number of divine sources in the interspatial rings of the disciples added up to over 500,000. Ling Faidu alone had more than 300,000 divine sources in his interspatial ring. Killing and looting was a good deal. In addition, there were many materials in those interspatial rings. Ling Faidu's interspatial ring had 2 books on skills, but Lu Li did not have the time to study them. He had to put them aside. Blood Fairy, can you solve the exit of this level? Lu Li turned to the immortal's body. He had been reading many books on inhibition formations. He was confident that he could solve the inhibition formations. However, if Blood Fairy could solve the inhibition formations directly, then he would not have to worry about it. It should not be difficult. Blood Fairy replied excitedly. Master, please give me a few more ice soul stones next time. I feel like I can still evolve. Blood Fairy was unwilling to follow Lu Li at first, but now she had changed her mind. Blood Fairy was excited about this evolution. She knew that she must rely on a powerful warrior. Otherwise, she could not survive in the divinity on her own. Many people like Ling Faidu would fight to subdue her. Later, I'll get you Crystal of Icy Soul when I have the chance. Lu Li said. He let the immortal's body out and ordered, take the wicked bead and go find Lu Shi and Holy Princess. Without them, it will be hard for us to escape. Lu Li had been thinking for a long time. He did some calculations and realized that the Cabinet of Cloud would track him down sooner or later. Therefore, if he wanted to survive, the only way was to join the pavilion of Misty Drizzle and seek protection there. Chapter 1266. On second thought, Lu Li realized that he had many loopholes. At least, the disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle all knew that he was on bad terms with Ling Faidu. Also, God of Wings and Yin Tiangang knew about the wicked bead and the immortal's body. Cabinet of Cloud would find Lu Li sooner or later if they were determined to find him. The divinity was vast and boundless. Lu Li could not even tell how large the southern divinity was. He was not even a citizen. He could not go to cities. If he were to fly with the beast of the void, it would take him 2 years to cross a prefecture. In 2 years, Cabinet of Cloud would have sent out many warriors to hunt him down. They would set up a dragnet and kill him easily. Given his current abilities, he would not be able to fight against Cabinet of Cloud. He had to make use of others. He could forget about the 4 super forces and prefectures. His only option was to join the 72 sections. In other words, his only way out was to join Pavilion of Misty Drizzle. If Pavilion of Misty Drizzle did not accept him or could not protect him, then he would die for sure. Not even an almighty god could save him. The immortal's body was on his way. Blood Fairy kept her tentacles in the ground to check for inhibition formations. 2 hours later, she said to Lu Li, "Master, I have found Lu Shi and the others. But there are 2 disciples of Cabinet of Cloud. They have built a formation to trap Lu Shi, Holy Princess, and the others." Charge. Without any hesitation, Lu Li ordered the immortal's body to attack. The deaf Taoist dashed out as well. Blood Fairy did not take action at once. Instead, she secretly controlled the formation of illusion to make the surroundings blurry. What was going on? The 2 disciples of Cabinet of Cloud were guarding outside the formation of 7 sacrifices. They were taken aback by the sudden change of scenery. They stood up in alarm. Whoosh! Blood Fairy controlled the immortal's body to fly over. The 2 disciples of Cabinet of Cloud were alarmed. They took out their relic weapons to attack the immortal's body. 2 sparks rose. The immortal's body only paused for a moment before he dashed on again. The 2 disciples of Cabinet of Cloud had to step back. As soon as they stepped back, they were trapped by the formation of illusion. They could not work together anymore. The rest was easy. The 2 disciples of the Cabinet of Cloud were like blind men. They could not see the immortal's body and the deaf Taoist. On the other hand, the 2 disciples could locate the 2 easily. These 2 high heaven pavilion disciples weren't very strong, so the moment the 2 of them separated, the result was already decided. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the 2 of them had turned into 2 corpses. Buzz! Lu Li put away the 2 corpses and the relic weapons. He came out from the wicked bead and stood outside the 7 sacrifices. It was actually very easy for Blood Fairy to break the 7 killing formation. After all, she was outside the 7 killing formation, not trapped inside. Lu Li did not ask Blood Fairy to do it. He wanted to try to crack the formation himself. He wanted to verify the insights he had gained from the formation restriction during this period of time, and at the same time, put into practice. There was a thick white fog in the wasteland in front of them. The white fog swept upwards and turned into white dragons that spiraled downwards, forming a cycle. Within the white mist, there were 7 purple lightning bolts crisscrossing, forming a cage that imprisoned the white mist and the space within it. The 7 killing formation. Lu Li walked around the 7 killing formation slowly. At the same time, he sensed the formation stones on the ground. He observed every detail and verified what he had learned recently. The 7 killing formation is ingenious. When the 7 dragons come together, there can be hundreds of variations. If the person inside wants to crack the formation, he or she must figure out all the variations and crack them one by one before he or she can come out. Lu Li nodded after 2 hours of observation. If he were inside the formation, it would be difficult for him to crack it. He might even spend years and still not be able to crack it. However, if he were outside the formation, it would be much easier. After another round of observation, Lu Li was more confident. He put away the immortal's body. His hand glowed as he took out many formation stones. There were many in the hall in the wicked bead. Lu Li used divine energy to throw the formation stones into the white fog. He did not need to crack the formation by force. He just needed to make some simple changes to the formation so that it would fall apart. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lu Li threw out formation stones as fast as lightning. Many formation stones were devoured by the white dragons or smashed by the thunderbolts. Still, Luli was not bored. He kept on throwing formation stones. Swish, swish. After the time for one incense stick to burn, and Luli had thrown out more than 100 formation stones, the white dragons in the 7 killing formation began to tumble and fight against the 7 purple thunderbolts. Bang! A moment later, the formation glared in white. Then, the purple thunderbolts disappeared and the white fog dispersed. Luli had successfully cracked the 7 killing formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From the formation came many noises. Luli used psychic power to check. It was Lu Shur, Holy Princess, and the others. But they seemed to be in a miserable state. 7 or 8 of them were missing. Luli looked into the formation and found that 8 disciples of the 2 sects had passed away. Brother Lu Shur rushed over. His face was filled with gratitude. "You have saved us again," Lu Shur said, pursing his lips. Holy Princess's dress and hair were a bit messy, but she was beautiful in a different way. She tidied up her hair and bowed to Luli. "Young Master Lu, I am so sorry." Disciples of the 2 sects bowed to Luli. The female disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain were looking at Luli with different feelings. Luli had saved them several times. What was more, there was so much about him that many female disciples were fond of him. Lu Shur used psychic power to check the surroundings. His eyes grew sharper. The previous carelessness was gone, replaced with sharpness. It was as if a sword hidden in the sheath had been unsheathed. "Brother Lu, I don't see anyone from the Cabinet of Cloud," Lu Shur asked after a look. Luli said, "Young Master Shur, let's talk in private." "Sure." Lu Shur nodded. Luli nodded to Holy Princess and left with Lu Shur. 30 miles later, Luli took out the wicked bead. With Lu Shur's permission, Luli took him to the inner hall of the wicked bead. "Young Master Shur." As soon as he came in, Luli cut to the chase. "I have killed Ling Faidu and those from the Cabinet of Cloud." "You killed them?" Lu Shur was taken aback. His expressions were complicated. There was shock, joy, worry, and annoyance. A moment later, Lu Shur forced a smile. He gave Luli a thumbs up and said, "Brother Lu, I don't admire many people in my life, but you are one of them. Only a handful of people in the Southern Divinity have the courage to kill Ling Faidu. At least, I don't have the courage. Ling Faidu set me up and killed some of my brothers from the pavilion of Misty Drizzle. I'm happy that you killed him, but I'm more worried. Brother Lu, if you are not from a major force, then you will be in big trouble." Luli shook his head. "I am not lying to you, Brother Shur. Before I entered the tomb of King Luna, I had just ascended. How can I be from a major force? I don't even have the status of a citizen. What I want to say is, if I join the pavilion of Misty Drizzle, can you protect me?" "No." Chapter 1267. Luli had underestimated Ling Faidu's status in the Cabinet of Cloud. He did not know that Ling Faidu's grandpa was one of the 3 founding patriarchs of the Cabinet of Cloud. Even if Lu Shur did kill Ling Faidu, Pavilion of Misty Drizzle would not be able to save Lu Shur as long as there was solid evidence and the chief of Cabinet of Cloud had spoken. As one of the 72 sects, there were competitions, shared glory, disagreements, and grudges. But there must be bottom lines and principles. No matter what happened, no matter what, killing the important disciples of the other side was a principle. Once the principle was violated, then the 2 sides would turn hostile, which could lead to a war between the 2 sections. Nobody could afford such a loss. Ling Faidu's death was a violation of the principle. Lu Shur could humiliate Ling Faidu, torture him, disable him, or even imprison him for 100,000 years. None of that was a problem. As long as someone was alive, the principle would not be violated. If someone was dead, then everything would be in doubt. This was the greatest provocation to the Cabinet of Cloud. The Cabinet of Cloud must show a positive attitude, even at the cost of fighting to the death. Otherwise, not only would the sect's reputation be tarnished, but all the disciples would feel insecure and doubt the sect. In the long run, the cabinet of cloud would be removed from the 72 sects in 100 or 1,000 years. It was easy to understand. For example, Luli killed Ling Faidu and the cabinet of cloud swallowed his anger. Next time, the other forces could kill the disciples of the cabinet of cloud, patriarchs of the cabinet of cloud, or even the founding patriarchs of the cabinet of cloud. Think about it. Who would have the courage to join a sect like this? Who would have the courage to rely on it? In the long run, the sect would go to ruin. The fact that Luli could kill Ling Faidu was proof of his abilities. According to the rules of the list, Luli could replace Ling Faidu after he killed Ling Faidu. If the news was made public and Luli was still alive, then Luli's name would definitely be on the list in the next issue. Luli had just ascended to the divinity, and he had become a warrior on the list. He would be favored by the major sections. Naturally, Pavilion of Misty Drizzle would be interested in a talent like him. However, Luli had killed Ling Faidu. Therefore, the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle would not take Luli in even if he were among the top 100,000 and became a mighty warrior, let alone the fact that he was among the top 300,000 on the list. Fighting to the death with the High Heaven Pavilion for a single genius would result in the deaths of countless experts from the Misty Rain Pavilion. The Misty Rain Pavilion's vitality would be greatly damaged, and it would be removed from the 72 divine sects. Luli was not worth such a big price. I see. Lu Shi explained the reason to Luli. Luli finally understood that he had been indulging in wild fantasies. Previously, he did not want to join the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle. He wanted to go to the Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Now, he knew that the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle did not want him. As for going to Emperor of Heaven Reverse, that was even more unrealistic. Not to mention whether he could go to the Immortal Sword Mountain. Even if he could, he would bring disaster to the Immortal Sword Sect. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was the master of the Sword Sect, but he only had the abilities of a mighty warrior in the divinity. How could he fend off the cabinet of cloud? Thank you, Brother 12. I'll think of a way myself. Luli exhaled and patted Lu Shi's shoulder. He was ready to break the formation and leave the tomb of King Luna before he could think of a way to escape. This time, nobody could help him. It was up to fate whether he could escape the pursuit of the cabinet of cloud or not. Take it easy, Lu Shi said with a frown. Then he paced up and down in the hall. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, he turned to Lu Li and said, Lu Li, there's only one way out for you. Really? Lu Li was cheered up. Young Master Shi, please tell me. The 72 sects are the top forces in the divinity. But there are other forces that are more powerful than the 72 sections. If you can join those forces, you can survive. Lu Shi said with certainty. After a pause, he mentioned the names of 4 forces. For example, Space-Time Office, Cabinet of Mystery, Hall of Life and Death, and Craftsman's Sect. Luli rolled his eyes. Those were the 4 legendary forces, the top 4 in the divinity. Luli knew that if he could join the 4 forces, the Cabinet of Cloud would not dare to touch him. But it was said that the 4 forces never took the initiative to recruit. Even if Luli knelt to death in front of the 4 forces, they would not cast a glance at him. Besides, his abilities were too weak. The 4 forces would not take him seriously. Since Lu Shi said so, Luli still had a glimmer of hope. He asked, Young Master Shi, are you saying that I have the chance to join one of the 4 legendary forces? No. Lu Shi shook his head. The 4 forces will not take the initiative. Even if they do, they will at least accept mighty warriors in the divinity. Luli was speechless. Was Lu Shi joking with him? Brother Lu, calm down. Let me finish. Seeing that Luli was about to teleport him out, Lu Shi did not keep Luli in suspense. You cannot join the 4 forces, but you can join a branch of the 4 forces. The 4 forces all have some hidden branches. For example, Craftsman's Sect has a branch at the Southern Divinity called Chamber of Relics. This sect has been keeping a low profile. The outside world does not know that they are related to Craftsman's Sect, but we do. As long as you can join Chamber of Relics, even if Cabinet of Cloud finds out about you, they will have to swallow their anger. They will not seek revenge in public. The worst they can do is to assassinate you. Chamber of Relics? Lu frowned. Lu sure would not lie to him. If Chamber of Relics was really a branch of Craftsman's sect, then Cabinet of Cloud would not dare to touch him. The question is, can I join Chamber of Relics? Lu pointed out the key point. Yes. Lu Shi's eyes glowed. What does Craftsman's sect do? Their main purpose is to forge relics. Almost all the top relics in the divinity come from Craftsman's sect. Of the top 10 relics on the list of relics, 6 were made by Craftsman's sect. Chamber of Relics is a branch of Craftsman's sect. Almost all of them are craftsmen. To make a relic, what is the most important? Inhibition formations and inhibition formations. I see. Lu understood now. Lu believed that Lu had the chance to join Chamber of Relics because of his abilities in inhibition formations and inhibition formations. Tian Lingzi is a master craftsman? Was that master craftsman's level? Lu remembered the introduction in the book Tian Lingzi left behind. He asked, Brother Shi, what are the levels of craftsmen? What is the level of a master craftsman? Master craftsman? You don't know? Lu looked at Lu as if he was an idiot. Seeing that Lu really did not know, Lu said, I don't know the specific levels of craftsmen, but master craftsmen are the best. There is only one master craftsman in the entire divinity, the master of Craftsman's sect. Next to master craftsmen are master craftsmen. There are only 20 of them in total. I remember there is a master craftsman in the space-time office. His status in the space-time office is higher than that of a founding member. Lu was taken aback. He did not know that Tian Lingzi had such a powerful background. If he really was a divine craftsman master, then the secret manuals he left behind would be worth a lot of money. If he went to the Divine Artifact Pavilion, he would also have a lot of development. Okay, I will go to Chamber of Relics. Lu made up his mind. He cupped his fist to Lu and said, Brother Shi, please show me the way. How can I go to Chamber of Relics? The simplest way is to find the space-time office in a nearby city and teleport to the city where Chamber of Relics is. But I think people from Cabinet of Cloud are already outside the tomb of King Luna. Chapter 1268. According to Lu no matter which teleportation formation they took in the tomb of King Luna, they would end up in the same valley. Since Ling Faidu crushed a bead of memory when Lu killed him, Cabinet of Cloud would send someone over immediately. They must have used the space-time office's teleportation ability to bring someone to the tomb of King Luna as soon as possible. The Cabinet of Cloud was not far away. If Lu were to spend divine sources to ask for help from the space-time office, the powerful warriors would arrive in 4 hours at most. It had been several hours since Lu killed Ling Faidu. Lu paced up and down. He seemed to be more worried than if he was in danger himself. He murmured, If Holy Princess and I can make a scene, we can distract Cabinet of Cloud. But how can you sneak away? If only Brother Lu could travel across the void. Sneak away? Lu raised his eyebrows. Young Master I have an armor that can make me invisible. It is a supreme relic. I got it from the path of life and death. See if you can hide from Cabinet of Cloud. The cloaking armor appeared over Lu's body. After a glow, Lu vanished from Lu sight. Lu was surprised. He used psychic power to check and was surprised. Brother Lu, you're not in this hall? He asked. I am. Lu said, I am right next to you. I don't think you can tell. I am still walking beside you. Lu walked around Lu There was no ripple in space. Lu eyes glowed. This is good. I don't think anyone below the level of a super mighty warrior in the divinity or someone with a powerful soul can sense it. You should be able to sneak out of the valley when Holy Princess and I are stirring up trouble. Lu appeared next to Lu made up his mind at once. Okay, teleport me out now. I will ask Holy Princess to erase the information about you from the souls of disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and Palace of Snow Mountain. Then you can crack the formation and we can go out. Erase their memories? Lu was surprised. Are disciples of pavilion of misty drizzle and palace of snow mountain not trustworthy? There are too many of them. Lu shook his head. What if some scoundrel betrays us? Both holy princess and I will be troubled by cabinet of cloud. I think it is better to erase your memories. 12th brother. Luli looked at Lu gratefully. I don't need to thank you. You're my first friend since I came to the divinity. Ha ha! Lu burst into laughter. Brother Lu don't recognize many people in my life. You have earned my respect, and you have helped us so many times. I don't want to owe you too much. All right, time is of the essence. Let's hurry. Luli left with Lu at once. They went to where Holy Princess was and asked her to go to the side. Holy Girl Snow. Lu spoke on behalf of Luli. Brother Lu is in big trouble, and he needs our help. Oh, Holy Princess raised her eyebrows. Without any hesitation, she looked at Lu Li and said, Young Master Lu, you have helped me on many occasions. If there is anything I can help you with, feel free to tell me. Thank you, Holy Princess. Luli clasped his fists. Lu continued. Holy Princess, please erase the memory of Brother Lu from the pavilion of misty drizzle and the disciples of the palace of Snow Mountain. Truth be told, Brother Lu has killed Ling Faidu. I think people from the Cabinet of Cloud are outside now. We need to help him escape. Killed Ling Faidu? A trace of surprise appeared on Holy Princess's calm face, and her cherry mouth opened slightly. It took her the time for 3 breaths to digest the shocking news. With determination in her eyes, she said, Okay, young Master I will do as you say. Lu nodded and put on a wicked smile. Holy Princess, I was right about you. You're a nice girl. It is a pity that I only like married men, or I would go after you. Luli was speechless. This Lu was a man that could kill people in seconds. But Holy Princess did not show any emotion. It seemed she was used to Lu shocking words. Lu left with a smile. Soon, he brought everyone from Pavilion of Misty Drizzle over. He told them not to resist and to sit on the ground. Those from Pavilion of Misty Drizzle trusted Lu They sat down obediently. Buzzing, Holy Princess took action. A pair of white-hide gloves appeared on her hands. She walked to disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and put her hands on their heads. Because of Lu order, none of the disciples from Pavilion of Misty Drizzle resisted. Luli had left the area under Lu arrangement in case he was seen by disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and Palace of Snow Mountain again, which might leave a bad memory. Okay. A moment later, Lu came by himself. Brother Lu, you go ahead and crack the formation. Then we will go in and teleport out directly. Also, if there are any treasures in the next level, I will save them for you. When I am out of the tomb of King Luna and the time is right, I will crush the Jade Talisman and you can come out at once. On second thought, Lu took out an interspatial ring and handed it over. There are 300,000 divine sources in here. Go to the Black Cliff, thousands of miles to the northeast. There is an underground black market where you can buy citizenship. After that, teleport to a nearby city and find the Office of Space-Time to teleport to the Valley of Relics, where the Chamber of Relics is located. I remember that in 3 months, the Chamber of Relics will be recruiting disciples again. As long as you can join the Chamber of Relics, the Cabinet of Cloud will not be able to do anything to you. For the first time, Luli felt warmth in the divinity, looking at Lu sincere eyes. He pushed the interspatial ring back and said, I have killed Ling Faidu and the others. I have 500,000 divine sources. Brother take whatever treasures I find in the next level. Consider it a token of my appreciation. I came to the tomb of King Luna to hide from my enemies. I am happy now that I have acquired a supreme relic armor. Brother don't say no. Luli bowed, seeing that Lu was about to say something else. He said with determination, If I can survive this and achieve something in the future, I will repay you 100 times for saving my life. Don't say that. Lu said with a straight face. I am not asking for anything in return for helping you. If you are not to my liking, I will not help you even if you can repay me 1,000 times. All right, a man, don't be so long-winded. The world is vast. As long as we can survive, we will meet again in the future. Now, crack the formation. Okay, Luli said to Blood Fairy. She reached out her tentacle from the wicked bead and stuck it into the ground under Luli's feet. A moment later, she said, Master, give me 4 to 6 hours. I think I can crack the formation. Okay. Luli nodded. He sat down with his legs crossed and used psychic power to sense Blood Fairy's progress. At the same time, he could learn a thing or two. Translucent lines were intertwined underground. The entire place was a formation. King Luna was not a master of inhibition formations. He must have hired a supermaster to build the tomb of King Luna. Chapter 1269. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess led the others toward the southeast. Luli followed them slowly. Along the way, he was still thinking about how Blood Fairy could solve the inhibition formations. As a matter of fact, he was confident that he could solve the inhibition formations of this level. His original plan was to change the inhibition formations in the 7 sacrifices. He wanted to change the inhibition formations in the inhibition formations of this level. They were in conflict with each other, and eventually, the entire formation collapsed. Blood Fairy's method was even more bizarre. Her tentacles were integrated into the inhibition formations. In other words, she had become one with the inhibition formations. Then, she could sense the exit through the inhibition formations and control it to open it up. There was no doubt that Blood Fairy's method was more powerful than his. That being said, this was a special skill of the Bloodvine race. Luli could not learn it even if he wanted to. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess led the others for thousands of miles. Up ahead, they saw a glaring portal in the wilderness. They looked at each other and admired Luli even more. How could Luli solve such a powerful inhibition formation so easily? If it were not for Luli, they would have been trapped here for 1,000 years. Let's go. Lu Shi took the lead and entered the portal, followed by Holy Princess. In a blink of an eye, they entered a small hall. There is an exit. Lu Shi and Holy Princess took a look. Not only was there a door in the hall, but there was also a teleportation formation. According to the records of the 2 sects, this teleportation formation could send people out of the tomb of King Luna directly. Treasures. A female disciple of the palace of Snow Mountain walked in. She saw 3 treasures placed in the middle of the hall. There was a long sword, an emerald green scepter, and a gray beast-skin scroll. The sword and the wand were glowing faintly. There seemed to be colorful runes flowing in them. Clearly, they were not low-quality relics. They must be high-quality or even supreme ones. Lu Shi dashed over and put away the 3 treasures. Holy Princess, pick one. He said to Holy Princess, why did you choose one? Some female disciples of the palace of Snow Mountain murmured. But Holy Princess knew that Lu Shi wanted to save one for Luli. She nodded and said, I want the scepter. Lu Shi threw the wand over. Without any explanation, he put away the other 2 artifacts. He glanced at the others and said, Holy Princess and I are ready to be teleported out. If any of you want to go to the next level, you can enter the gate. Life and death, glory and splendor, it all depends on your own fate. No one dared to go in anymore. The tomb of King Luna was too dangerous. So many people died this time, and they were almost trapped in the illusory matrix for 1,000 years. At this moment, nobody could figure out how Lu Shi and Holy Princess cracked the formation. The memory of Luli in their souls had been erased by Holy Princess. If no one is going to the next stage, then enter the teleportation array and leave. Lu Shi nodded to Holy Princess, who led the female disciples of the palace of Snow Mountain into the teleportation formation. A white light flashed, and everyone disappeared from the main hall one by one, teleported out. You guys going too? Wait for me outside. Lu Shi ordered the disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle to teleport out. When Lu Shi was the only one left, he took out the sword and the hide scroll. But he did not read the hide scroll. After a moment of thought, he put the gray hide scroll on the ground. Bang! He crushed a jade talisman in his hand, stepped into the teleportation formation, and vanished from the main hall. A moment later, the main hall glowed as Lu Li was teleported in. He glanced around and soon saw the hide scroll. Lu Li pursed his lips. Deep down, he agreed with Lu Shi. No matter how many treasures were in the hall, at least Lu Shi did not take everything for himself. No matter what skill was recorded on the gray hide scroll, even if it was of the lowest level, it was proof that Lu Shi had a good character. Lu Li walked over and put away the hide scroll. He was not in the mood to read it. He stood there, waiting for Lu Shi's signal. Lu Shi and the others did leave the tomb of King Luna. They appeared in a cave in a valley. As Lu Shi had expected, the valley was crowded with people, at least 1,000. Ling Hong. Lu Shi saw a middle-aged man at first glance. This man was well known in Southern divinity. He ranked around 20,000 on the list and often represented the cabinet of Cloud. He was Ling Faidu's father. 6 mighty warriors in the divinity. Cabinet of Cloud is paying so much attention to them. Lu Shi took a look at those around Ling Hong. He was worried. Could Lu Li's cloaking armor hide him from being tracked down? If Lu Li was discovered, he would not be able to leave this place alive. Lu Shi and Holy Princess looked at each other. Lu Shi nodded to Holy Princess and led the way into the valley. The cave they were in was not spacious. Cabinet of Cloud's warriors were surrounding the cave. Lu Shi walked in the front. He noticed that the cave was surrounded by people from Cabinet of Cloud. Lu Shi pulled a long face and said to Ling Hong, "Greetings, Patriarch Ling and elders. Why are you surrounding the cave and forbidding us from going out?" Ling Hong kept a straight face, but there was sorrow in the depth of his eyes. The other patriarchs said nothing. After a pause, Ling Hong said coldly, "Lu family punk, my son is dead." Ling Faidu is dead? Lu Li was surprised, and so were the disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and Palace of Snow Mountain. They did not know that Ling Faidu was killed, and some of his memories were erased. That was why they were so shocked to hear the news. Holy Princess pulled a long face. That being said, she was good at acting. Her eyes glowed, and she opened her mouth, which was quite alluring. Lu Shi's expressions changed. He cupped his fists and said, "Patriarch Ling, I am sorry for your loss. The tomb of King Luna is full of dangers, and many of us have lost our lives. Brother Faidu was a young talent. It is such a shame that he lost his life in there." Ling Hong pulled a long face. Then, killing intent rose from him as he shouted, "If Faidu had died in the tomb of King Luna, I would not be here. Faidu was killed by someone. I have brought my men here today to find the murderer and avenge my son." What? Ling Hong's words caused an uproar in the valley. Hundreds of people from Cabinet of Cloud came, and the other hundreds were just onlookers. Just now, they had been wondering what had happened. Now, they learned that Ling Faidu was murdered. How was that possible? Lu Shi was taken aback. Who doesn't know who Brother Faidu is? Who dares to do that? Who dares to kill a core disciple of one of the 72 sects? Lord Ling, you must get to the bottom of this and seek justice for Brother Faidu. Of course. Glancing at Lu Shi and Holy Princess, Ling Hong said coldly, "I am here to find the culprit. Therefore, I will have to trouble you for now. I will detain anyone who comes out from the tomb of King Luna and search their souls one by one until I find the culprit." Search their souls? Chapter 1270. Lu Shi and Holy Princess looked at each other again. Both of them had made up their minds. Lu Shi's face grew colder. He said in an unfriendly tone, "Soul search? Patriarch Ling, are you suspecting that we killed Brother Faidu?" "I am not suspecting." Ling Hong waved his hand. "I am suspecting anyone who comes out from the tomb of King Luna. I am not the person. My son died a horrible death. to seek justice for him. I will have to wrong you, Sure and Jingya. Lu Sure snorted. What if we don't want to be wronged? Are you going to kill us, Patriarchling? Disciples of the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle are not pushovers. We prefer death to humiliation. For the first time, Holy Princess spoke. I have always respected you from the Cabinet of Cloud. But if you want to search my soul, I would rather die than be humiliated. What? The onlookers outside the valley were stirred. They did not expect to witness such an exciting event. Cabinet of Cloud, Pavilion of Misty Drizzle, and Palace of Snow Mountain were going to fight? This was big news in the divinity. Killing intent surged out from Ling Hong. He had just lost his son, and he was extremely depressed. If it were not for the fact that Lu Sure and Holy Princess were of high status, he would have killed them. A patriarch of the Cabinet of Cloud said in a hurry, Sure, Jingya, Brother Hong has just lost his son. Can't you be a bit more modest? Cabinet of Cloud, Pavilion of Misty Drizzle, and Palace of Snow Mountain have been good friends for generations. You know Fidu as well. Theoretically speaking, you should help us find a murderer. Didn't your seniors tell you that disciples of the 72 sects should help each other and be united? Ha. Lu Sure sneered. Helping each other and being united is what we should do. But that does not include allowing anyone to search our soul. We would have no privacy at all. This is the biggest insult to our dignity. My grandpa once told me that disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle can die, but never be humiliated. Holy Princess added, Patriarch Lingang, we have no quarrel with young Master Fidu. Why do we have to kill him? Even if there were grievances or grudges, we would only ask the elders to help us. How could we kill them in private? We all know the secret rules between the sections. We absolutely cannot kill a core disciple. Our elders have often warned us about this. Please forgive us, but we cannot accept the soul-searching. We can swear an almighty oath that we did not kill Ling Fidu, or else we will die a horrible death. Ling Gang and the other High Heaven Pavilion elders glanced at each other, their faces showing some belief. After all, a main god blood oath was not something that could be casually made. This was a blood oath of the highest standard in the god realm. Throughout history, many powerhouses who had violated it had died tragically. Lu Sure shrugged. I can take an almighty oath that I did not kill Ling Fidu. Ling Gang turned to look at Ling Hong. The latter's expression did not ease. He said coldly, I don't care if you killed him or not. Stay here for the time being. None of you are allowed to leave. It won't be too late to leave after everything is investigated. What? Lu Sure pulled a long face. His eyes were filled with defiance. He crushed a blood-red jade talisman in his hand and then took out his saber. Pointing at Ling Hong, he said, Cabinet of Cloud, don't you think you have gone too far? Do you really think we, Pavilion of Misty Drizzle, are pushovers? Disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle, listen up. Follow me and kill anyone who dares to stop us. Lu Sure, I do not believe that Cabinet of Cloud has the guts to keep us here. Disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle were frightened. What was wrong with Lu Sure? Ling Fidu was dead, and Ling Hong had a bad temper. Was Lu Sure courting death? Holy Princess understood that Lu Sure was trying to create a chance for Lu Li. After all, as long as the situation was not chaotic, Lu Li would be spotted when he came out. Holy Princess's eyes flickered. If it were not for Lu Li, they would have been trapped in the tomb of King Luna for at least 1,000 years, if not dead. 1,000 years was precious for a girl. When she came out after 1,000 years, she would be an old lady. On this thought, she made up her mind. Taking out the green twig, she said, Disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain, follow me. Let's see if the seniors of Cabinet of Cloud have the guts to kill us. Even though we are all female disciples, we're not weaker than men. Let's go. How dare you? Are you courting death? Ling Hong was enraged. He enjoyed a high status in Cabinet of Cloud. Now that he had just lost his son, he was filled with rage and killing intent. Now Lu Sure and Holy Princess, two juniors, dared to offend him like this? His anger had been suppressed to the extreme and was about to explode. Let's go. Lu Sure took the lead and walked out. He He was determined. Disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle had been following Lu Shur's lead. They had no choice but to follow him. On the other side, Holy Princess walked out with the female disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain toward the disciples of Cabinet of Cloud outside the cave. Hiss, hiss. The onlookers were excited. If the three major sects were to fight, it would be a rare event in 1,000 years. What they saw today would be enough for them to brag about for years to come. Ling Gang and the others were taken aback. Their eyes were filled with anger and anxiety. Ling Gang kept glancing at Ling Hong. If Ling Hong could not hold back his anger and killed Holy Princess and Lu Shur, it would lead to a war between the three sections. Lu Shur and the others were approaching. The saber in his hand glowed in 5 colors. His armor emerged, and he looked determined. The disciples of Pavilion of Misty Drizzle were affected by Lu Shur's vigor. They took out their weapons, ready to fight at any moment. Holy Princess's face was cold. Though she was not as powerful as Lu Shur, her steps were firm. She had been walking side by side with Lu Shur. She stared at Ling Hong with her clear eyes, like a stubborn child. On the other hand, the powerful warriors of Cabinet of Cloud were unsettled. They did not step back, and they were holding weapons in their hands. However, they were much weaker. Killing Lu Shur and Holy Princess in front of so many people was tantamount to declaring war against the two major sections. Cabinet of Cloud was not weak. That being said, if Pavilion of Misty Drizzle and Palace of Snow Mountain worked together, Cabinet of Cloud would be reduced to ashes. Ling Hong was well aware of this. The thing was, he could not find a way out. His son had just died. Now, he was forced to step back by 2 juniors. How could he survive in the divinity? The prestige of Cabinet of Cloud would be tarnished as well. His hand glowed in a dark cyan light. Looking at Lu Shur, who was getting closer, Ling Hong was struggling. He could take down Lu Shur, and Holy Princess in an instant. However, once the fight started, he could kill people by mistake. What if the situation went out of control? Buzzing. Right at that moment, the space above the valley began to tremble. Following that, Xianxi in heaven and earth came into being and formed a pair of eyes. A pressure as vast as the blue dome of the sky pressed down, causing everyone in the valley to be unable to breathe. When the eyes came out, Lu Shur crushed another jade talisman in his hand. He knew this was the best time. If Luli could not sneak out, then Lu Shur would not be able to escape. Sure, what is going on? Lu Shur asked in a solemn voice. Cupping his fists, Lu Shur said, Grandpa, Patriarch Ling suspects that I have killed his son. Not only does he want to search our souls, but he also wants to imprison us. I am about to take someone with me. Grandpa? A name came to many people's mind. Lu Shur's grandpa, Lu Tianxing, the master of the Hall of Blood in Pavilion of Misty Drizzle, the most ruthless killer in Pavilion of Misty Drizzle. Chapter 1271. Lu Tianxing's words were domineering. He went to the Cabinet of Cloud alone and wanted to tear down the Palace of Cloud, but nobody doubted his determination and ability. Lu Tianxing was a famous lunatic in Southern Divinity, and he had done many crazy things. The most important thing was Lu Tianxing's strength. He was ranked 530th on the God list, not much weaker than the cabinet master of the Lingxiao Pavilion. What was more, the fundamental principle he learned was freakish. When he lost his mind, the chief of Cabinet of Cloud might not have the courage to fight him. In the divinity, strength was not the scary thing. What was scary was those who did not follow the rules and principles and would lose their minds at the slightest provocation. Lu Tianxing was one of them. Ling Hong and the others looked at the pair of eyes. They felt aggrieved. It was Ling Faidu who was killed. They should be the ones venting their anger. How come they were the ones being suppressed? Buzzing. The space in the cave trembled as Lu Li was teleported out. He activated the cloaking armor at once. He was extremely nervous as well. There were too many powerful warriors out there. He did not dare to move at all. When he was sure that no psychic power was coming, he sneaked out quietly. His steps were light and his speed was slow. He was lucky that everyone outside was distracted by Lu Tianxing. Nobody was paying attention to what was going on in the cave. Ling Hong and the others stared at the pair of eyes. Ling Hong cupped his hands and said, "Senior Tianxing, my son died a horrible death. All the disciples who entered the tomb of King Luna were killed mercilessly. Our pavilion master is furious. If it were sure, and the others, you would be furious as well, right? I don't mean to make things difficult, for sure. I just want them to stay and cooperate with the investigation. When the murderer is found, I will go to the pavilion of Misty Drizzle and ask for forgiveness in person. How about that?" Lu Li had just stepped out of the cave when he suddenly stopped. He felt cold all over. This was because he discovered that the pair of eyes in mid-air had calmly glanced at him. Just a single glance was enough to make him almost unable to withstand that terrifying aura. If he slumped down and sat down, it was very likely that he would make a sound and be exposed instantly. "Grandpa!" Luckily, Lu Shi shouted all of a sudden. The eyes moved away from Lu Li. Lu Shi cupped his fists and said, "Since Patriarch Ling has said so, Grandpa, don't worry about it. We will cooperate with him." It was understandable that he was in a bad mood after Fei Du's death. "I was also in the wrong just now. It was because of my matter that I alarmed Grandfather. It was 12's fault. Go!" The moment Lu Shi spoke, Lu Li took action again. Lu Shi had created such a good chance for him. If Lu Li didn't seize it, he would be an idiot. Lu Shi was clever with a double meaning. He wanted Lu Tianxing not to pay attention to Lu Li. Lu Tianxing might be a lunatic, but as a super mighty existence of the immortal world, how intelligent was he? Lu Tianxing sneered. After remaining silent for 10 breaths of time, he said, "I can cooperate with the investigation. However, Ling Hong, you better listen up. I can hit and scold my grandson, but no one else can. Otherwise," in the time for 10 breaths, Lu Li had quietly passed through the encirclement of the powerful warriors of the Cabinet of Heaven. He walked to the edge of the valley and quietly floated towards the outside. He was lucky. Ling Hong and the others were attracted by Lu Tianxing. Also, this time, Cabinet of Heaven didn't send any super mighty warriors from the divinity over. Otherwise, Lu Li would have been noticed as soon as he came out. In the air, that pair of eyes glanced toward the valley. Once again, Lu Li felt a chill. However, the next second, Lu Tianxing's eyes vanished. Lu Shi was relieved. He put away his weapons. Just now, he noticed something strange in Lu Tianxing's eyes. Lu Shi knew that Lu Li had escaped from the valley. He glanced at Holy Girl Shui, and the latter understood him tacitly. A faint smile flashed across her lips. She did not know the plan of Lu Li and Lu Shi. That being said, if Lu Li could escape from the valley without anyone noticing, it would be much more difficult for Cabinet of Heaven to hunt him down. Put away your weapons. Work with the seniors of Cabinet of Heaven to find the culprit. Holy Princess waved her hand and walked to the side. Lu Shi came with his team as well. Cabinet of Heaven warriors didn't dare to surround them anymore. After all, Lu Shi and the others were not running away. Ling Gang told them to keep guarding the cave. He patted Ling Hong's shoulder and walked toward Lu Shi. He wanted to ask about the tomb of King Luna. But it was obvious that the disciples of the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle had their memories of Lu Li erased. Cabinet of Heaven did not have the courage to search Holy Princess and Lu Shi's souls. They could get some information, but not the culprit. Lu Li had left the valley. He did not stop for a second. He dashed into the distance like a sly fox. Lu Shi told him that there was a black cliff to the northeast tens of millions of years ago. There was an underground black market where one could buy citizenship. Lu Li sped up to the top of his speed. Wearing the cloaking armor, he ran without making any sound. He knew that leaving the valley was not necessarily safe. The warlord skeleton and the wicked bead were loopholes. Besides, God of Wings was outside the tomb of King Luna. Who knew if she had returned to the Office of Creation or not? By then, Cabinet of Heaven could use their influence to investigate. Once God of Wings exposed his identity, the entire Southern Divinity would be searching for him. Lu Shi, and the others had gone overboard with their acting. Ling Hong and the others might not suspect anything for a while, but they would after a while. If Lu Li could not join the Chamber of Relics before Cabinet of Heaven found out, his life would be in danger. Faster, faster, faster. Lu Li did not stop for even a moment. He rushed on. Fortunately, those nearby were all attracted to that valley. There were no wild beasts in the nearby mountains. Lu Li hurried on with ease. Tens of millions of miles was not a long journey. In just over a day, Lu Li found that huge cliff, the Black Cliff. He walked around and soon found some ripples of inhibition formations in a small cave. He also saw some scouts hiding nearby. He circled around and put away the god armor. Dragon armor appeared on his body, and he swaggered into the cave. Before he arrived at the cave, a dark-skinned, middle-aged man came out. He looked at Lu Li with alertness and asked, "What brings you here, sir?" "To buy something." Lu Li took out 500 divine sources and threw them over. "My friend said that you have many good things here." Of course, that dark-skinned, middle-aged man beamed when Lu Li gave him 500 divine sources. "We have everything that you cannot buy in the city. Recently, we have a batch of beautiful foxes. Every one of them is a great furnace. Young master, if you're interested, you can have some fun with them." "Ha ha." The dark-skinned, middle-aged man showed Lu Li to the cave. As soon as he stepped into the cave, Lu Li felt his vision blurred. He found himself in a hall. There were 2 rows of top-notch beauties standing in the main hall. They were all wearing very revealing clothes. There were 4 corridors in the main hall, most likely leading to different side halls. "Welcome, honorable guest." 10 beautiful women knelt on the ground. Their breasts were exposed, and their faces were gentle. Lu Li nodded to himself. The way the black market welcomed guests was not bad. Chapter 1272. Treasures. Lu Li did not have the time or the mood to waste his time. He said coldly. The old man immediately led him to the first corridor on the left. After walking a few hundred feet, they entered a fork in the road and finally entered a side hall. Sitting in the side hall, Lu Li did not want to waste any more time. He cut to the chase. "I want a citizen. What is the price?" "Citizen?" The old man frowned. Lu Li just gave 500 divine sources to the gatekeeper. How could such a rich man not be a citizen? But the old man did not ask further questions. After a pause, he said, "If you want a citizen of the Vicissitude House, it will be cheaper. About 100,000 divine sources. The other prefectures will be more expensive." 100,000? Lu Li curled his lips. He was being treated like a pig, but he had to be humble when he was living under another's roof. He nodded. "Okay, 100,000 it is. How long will it take?" The old man said after a moment of hesitation, 3 days if you are slow. If you are in a hurry, you will need to add another 20,000 divine sources. You could get it done in half a day. **T. Lu Li was speechless. The palace of Black Mountain was so evil. How could they extort him? Lu Li made up his mind. "You're being too cruel. 100,000 divine sources for a citizen is fine. Why do you have to delay the time?" "Young master, it's not that we are ruthless," the old man explained patiently. "This thing needs to be done with all kinds of connections, and we also need to send experts to the nearby cities as fast as possible. We also need to pay our respects there. Otherwise, okay. 120,000 it is. Do it now." Lu Li was getting annoyed. His ring glowed as he took out a pile of divine sources, threw them on the ground, and said, "Here are 50,000 divine sources. Pay the rest when you are done." "Okay, no problem." The old man collected all the divine sources. He took out a small bottle and handed it to Lu Li. "Young master, please give me 3 drops of your blood. I will have someone take care of it. It will be done in half a day." Lu Li gave it 3 drops of blood. Then he walked out and said, "I have something to do. I will come back in half a day." The elder saw Lu Li off with respect. After Lu Li walked out and made sure that he was not being followed, the cloaking armor appeared and he became invisible. Then he found a place outside the Black Mountain cliff and sat down with his legs crossed. He was worried about the people of Black Mountain Palace. What if they stole his divine origin and reported it to Blue Flame Manor? At that time, he would be surrounded by a group of official army soldiers while he was sitting inside. He would not be able to escape. Not long afterward, several people flew out from the Black Cliff. They took out a beast of the void and flew away. Luli waited patiently. After half a day, those people came back and entered the cave. Luli waited for a while. He sat outside for a while to make sure that there were no prefecture warriors or pursuing warriors nearby. Then, he revealed himself and went into the cave. The elder took out a cyan jade talisman, handed it to Luli, and said, "Young master, this is your ID token. With this token, you are a citizen of the Vicissitude House." Luli took over the jade talisman and sensed it. He could feel a spiritual connection with the jade talisman. On the jade talisman were two characters, Song Yin, written in bold calligraphy. Luli had seen this jade talisman before. Many prefecture warriors had it. Yes. Luli was relieved to be a citizen. At least, he could go in and out of cities at will and go to the space-time office. He was not in a hurry to leave. He thought about it and asked, "Do you have blood crystals?" Luli only had one piece of blood crystal left. His biggest weapon, the warlord skeleton, could only be used once. Once he encountered powerful enemies and the last piece of blood crystal was used up, he would have to wait for death. Blood crystal? The elder frowned. He took out a book. He flipped through a few pages, pointed at a red crystal, and asked Luli, "Is this it?" Luli nodded. "Yes." "What is the price?" "We don't have it in stock right now. We have to get it from the headquarters. Even if we can get it from the headquarters, there won't be a lot. Blood crystals are rare materials." The elder continued, "The price is at least 100,000 divine sources for one piece. It will take at least half a year to get it from the headquarters. Young master, if you need it, you can pay a down payment so that I can contact the headquarters." 100,000 divine sources? Luli blinked, speechless. One move from the warlord skeleton was equivalent to 100,000 divine sources. What about 100 moves in a row? Wouldn't it cost him 10 million divine sources? Of course, Luli knew that the Black Mountain Palace was an underground black market. Everything could be sold at dozens of times the market price. "Not for now. I will come back if I need anything. Right? Can you give me a detailed map of the nearby area?" Luli stood up and was ready to leave. The elder handed over a hide scroll from his ring and said with a smile, "This is for free, young master. The Black Mountain Palace welcomes your visit anytime." Luli handed over the rest of the divine sources and walked out. Soon, he went invisible and left the area. He took a detour to make sure that the Black Mountain Palace did not send anyone to follow him. Luli checked the map. The nearest city was hundreds of thousands of miles away. He dared not to linger any longer. He rushed over as fast as he could. Luli arrived at the city after more than 2 hours. He did not go in rashly. Instead, he walked around the city to make sure that everything was normal. Then, he revealed himself and swaggered into the city in a cyan robe. There were guards at the city gate. If Luli had a token of citizenship, the guards would ignore him. If not, the guards would go and check. Luli hung up the token of citizenship and walked into the city in a low profile. The prefecture warriors at the city gate gave him a few glances, but did not give him much attention. Luli walked into the city. Okay. The moment he entered the city, Luli was relieved to see the tidy streets and manners. He hurried to the north of the city. The teleportation formations were in the plaza at the north of the city. He had to go to a nearby city and then find the space-time office. As a matter of fact, he could teleport to the Valley of Relics from other cities, but the distance was too far. It would take him at least a year to reach the Valley of Relics. The Valley of Relics was not in the Vicissitude House, but in the Southern Sun Prefecture, 2 prefectures away from the Vicissitude House. At the plaza at the north, Luli handed over the divine sources and stepped into a teleportation formation. After a blur, he arrived at a huge city, Space-Time Palace. Luli walked out of the teleportation formation. Soon, he was attracted by a huge black castle on the left side of the plaza. There were 3 words carved on the castle: Space-Time Office, Heavenly Fortune Pavilion, Hall of Life and Death, Craftsman's Sect. Luli also saw 3 castles of similar height. The 4 supreme forces all had branches in major cities in the divinity. It seemed that the rumors were true. Go! Chapter 1273. The main gate of the space-time office was impressive and could accommodate more than a dozen people. There were 2 smaller gates on the side, guarded by warriors in red and blue armors. Luli tried to sense their energy. They were more powerful than prefecture warriors. Space-time office was indeed resourceful. Luli noticed that nobody was coming in or out of the main gate. Instead, there were people coming in and out of the smaller gates. Luli walked to the small gate and cupped his fist to the 2 escorts. I want to be teleported to a place. Which gate should I go to? The escorts were not arrogant. They nodded politely. Go in here. Someone will receive you. Luli nodded and stepped in. It was a hall with 7 or 8 old men in steward robes. Seeing Luli coming in, a man came to greet him politely. Honorable guest, how can I help you? I want to go to a place, the Valley of Relics. Luli came straight to the point. The Valley of Relics of the Southern Sun Prefecture? The old man's hair was combed in an orderly manner. He looked like a gentleman. After Luli gave his consent, the old man said, if you want to teleport there directly, it will cost you 200,000 divine sources. Is that an acceptable price? With Luli's consent, the old man made a gesture of invitation and showed Luli inside. There were many tunnels inside. After several turns, Luli arrived at a branch hall. There was a gorgeous altar in the branch hall. There were 4 statues of half-beast and half-human in the front, back, left, and right. The altar was covered with patterns like a spider's web, which gave Luli a headache. What a complicated formation. Luli used psychic power to check and exclaimed after a while. Pointing to the altar, the old man said, Sir, after you hand over the divine sources, we can activate the space-time formation at once to teleport you out of the Valley of Relics. The deviation will not be more than 30 miles. Okay, the famous space-time office would not lie. Luli handed over the divine sources without hesitation. But he did not step into the altar rashly. Instead, he asked, Sir, I have a question. If I want to teleport back to the mortal world, how much divine sources will it cost? It depends on which universe you're going to. The old man answered politely. Usually, to the mortal world, it will cost at least hundreds of millions of divine sources. If the universe is remote, it may cost 1 billion or even 10 billion divine sources. If you're just sending some relics back, the cost will be lower. Luli was taken aback. Ling Faidu, a young master of the Cabinet of Cloud, only had 300,000 divine sources. Luli had to kill so many people to get 500,000 divine sources. It was not easy to get divine sources. A trip back to the Earth Imperial Universe would cost at least hundreds of millions of divine sources, or even billions. He was not going to find people like Ling Faidu to kill. How many people would he have to kill to gather 100 million divine roots? I understand. Thank you very much. Please teleport me to the Valley of Artifacts. Luli clasped his fists. He would not go back for the time being. He must establish himself in the divinity and avoid the pursuit of the Cabinet of Cloud. Luli stepped into the altar. The old warrior waved his hand. 4 white-robed and white-haired old warriors walked in. They released divine energy in their hands and struck at the 4 statues. Buzz! Soon, the statues lit up, and so did the patterns on the altar. The light grew brighter and brighter. Luli felt the world was occupied by white. He trembled and vanished into the altar. After a long time, maybe a couple of hours, maybe a day or 2, Luli finally felt his feet touch the ground. He collapsed to the ground, feeling dizzy. After the time for a dozen breaths, Luli finally came back to his senses. He shook his head and used psychic power. He found himself in a forest. Luckily, there were no wild beasts nearby, or else he would have been attacked. That being said, he had a supreme relic armor. The average wild beast could not kill him. After a moment of rest, Luli stood up. He went into stealth mode and wandered around. A moment later, he found himself at the entrance of a huge valley. On the two sides of the valley were two huge mountains. At the entrance of the valley was a magnificent city wall. On the wall were 3 words written in flamboyant calligraphy: Valley of Artifacts. The teleportation altar of the space-time office is impressive. There is no teleportation formation here, but they can send people here unilaterally, Luli exclaimed to himself. He frowned as he looked at the crowd outside the city wall gate. Why were there so many people sitting outside? How could the Valley of Artifacts allow people to harass them? Buzzing, he put away the soul concealment armor and slowly walked over in an ordinary green robe. 2 more days. This is a long wait. You don't even have this much patience, and you want to join the Chamber of Artifacts? Do you know that the most important thing in forging artifacts is patience? Without patience, you will never achieve anything when you study inhibition formations. Right? I have been waiting here for months. Can't I wait for 2 more days? To become a respectable craftsman in the Southern Divinity, the only way is to join the Chamber of Artifacts. In 2 days, the Chamber of Artifacts will start to recruit disciples. I wonder what the test will be. I have failed 9 times in a row. If I fail this time, I will never be able to join the Chamber of Artifacts. I, Lu Dahua, am confident that I will join the Chamber of Artifacts and become a craftsman. Not only will I become a craftsman, I will become a craftsman step by step, a master craftsman, and then a master craftsman. Eventually, I will join the craftsman's sect and have my way in the divinity. Before Luli got closer, he could hear the chatter. Thousands of people were sitting there. It would be difficult for them to keep quiet. 2 days later, just in time, Luli was delighted. He stopped and listened carefully. He wanted to get more information so that he could join the Chamber of Artifacts without any risk. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Right at that moment, from the path behind Luli came some noises, as well as some muffled footsteps. Luli did not notice because he was distracted. By the time he came back to his senses and turned around, he saw a team of white shadows rushing toward him. The one at the front was about to bump into him. "Get lost!" a girl shouted. Then a white whip lashed out at Luli's face. What? Luli pulled a long face. He almost let out the immortal's body. But at this critical moment, he swallowed his anger and turned to the side to dodge the whip. Slap! The whip didn't land on Luli's face, but on his shoulder. Luli was smashed away by the force and rolled to the side. Hiss! The white shadows all stopped. Luli got up and glanced over. He saw many white unicorns, and on the unicorns there were people, all of them beautiful young ladies. The unicorn at the front was handsome, and the lady on it was beautiful as well. She was wearing a white, revealing soft armor. Her chest and smooth abdomen were exposed. She was also wearing a leather armor skirt and leather boots, revealing her perfectly round and straight long legs. Chapter 1274. Luli was angry. Why would he stand in the middle of the road? It was a plain with roads everywhere. Why couldn't they take a detour? Why would they bump into him and whip him? The girl was pretty but short-tempered. Luli was disgusted by her spoiled manner. In addition to her, the 7 young ladies were also looking at him with disdain. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A team of warriors rushed over. They dropped to one knee in front of the yellow-dressed lady and said, "Greetings, Lady Dan." "Ladies? Lady Dan?" Luli showed no emotion. This Lady Dan must be a young lady from a big shots family in the Chamber of Relics. Those young ladies must be from prestigious families in the Chamber of Relics. The warriors saluted. Their leader looked at Luli and said, "Lady Dan, do you need us to drive him away?" "Never mind." Seeing that Luli did not talk back, Lady Dan waved her hand and said, "Let's go. Let's go." What bad luck. Lady Dan dashed away with the female warriors. The warriors threw Luli a cold glance and then rushed toward the city gate. Luli was frustrated. Those warriors must have remembered him. If he wanted to join the Chamber of Relics, it would be much more difficult. He might not even have the chance to pass the assessment. sh*t. This is so frustrating. Luli clenched his fists. If he had a choice, he would turn around and leave. He would never join the Chamber of Relics. He had no choice but to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. He had nowhere else to go, so he could only walk to the back of the crowd and sit down quietly. From the distance came people in twos and threes. Some were young and some were middle-aged. They all found a place to sit. 2 days later, the number of people outside the Valley of Relics had reached 10,000. Today, the gate of the Valley of Relics was opened. Out came 10 old men in black robes and teams of warriors in white robes. Some were young and some were middle-aged. They must be disciples of the Chamber of Relics. In total, there were over 100 of them. Swish, swish, swish. Tens of thousands of people stood up nervously. The Chamber of Relics was recruiting disciples once a year. There were tens of thousands of people here, but in the end, only dozens of people could join the Chamber of Relics, or even fewer. Everyone was naturally very nervous. Hello, everyone. I'm Elder Tian Haiqiang of the Artifact Pavilion. You can call me Elder Tian. A dignified old man pressed his hand down and suppressed the noise. He glanced around and said, "The annual disciple recruitment ceremony of the Chamber of Relics has begun. I won't waste any more time. I just want to say that everything will be done according to the rules of our Artifact Pavilion. If anyone tries to cause trouble, don't blame us for dealing with them according to the rules. As you all know, our Artifact Pavilion focuses on refining weapons. Therefore, the comprehension of formations and restrictions, as well as the talent in this area, are very important. Next, there will be 2 tests. If you can pass these 2 tests, you will be able to enter the Valley of Artifacts for the last test. If you pass the test, you will become a registered disciple of the Hall of Artifacts and have the opportunity to learn how to forge weapons." After a long speech, Patriarch Tian waved his hand and said, "Now, the first test will begin. Later, we will build a formation of illusion to trap all of you in. Only those who can walk out in 2 hours will pass the first test." Formation of illusion? Luli was delighted. Since the Bloodvine was so good at breaking formations, this test would not be too difficult. He would be able to walk out in 2 hours. No, I must get out as soon as I can. Luli thought about it. 2 days ago, he offended that Lady Dan, and some warriors bore grudges against him. Luli must be capable enough to ensure that he could join the Chamber of Relics without fail. Blood Fairy. Later, there will be a formation of illusion. You must crack it at once and help me out. Luli told Blood Fairy. He took out the wicked bead and held it in his hand. Blood Fairy hurriedly extended her tentacles into his body. Finally, she quietly reached into the ground. Okay, activate the formation of illusion. Patriarch Tian waved his hand. The 10 white-robed disciples behind him came over and stood in a corner. They took out many formation stones and some other strange items to set up. Rise. A moment later, a disciple shouted. Luli and the others were enveloped by the white haze and disappeared. Rustle, rustle, rustle. At the city gate came some footsteps. Lady Dan came out with a group of girls. She walked to Patriarch Tian and asked with a smile, "Uncle Tian, are there any good ones this time?" "Nonsense." Patriarch Tian pretended to be angry. "Lady Dan, you should call me Grandpa Tian based on my age. Don't be so rude. I will tell your grandpa on you." "Ha." Lady Dan stuck out her pink tongue. Gazing into the white haze, she grabbed the 2 braids by her ears and said, "Patriarch Tian, let's make a bet. If someone can walk out in the time for 1 incense stick to burn, I will call you Grandpa Tian. How about that? The time for 1 incense stick to burn?" Patriarch Tian frowned. Rolling his eyes, he said, "This is not fair. You are cheating. Where can you find so many talents in inhibition formations?" "I don't care." Lady Dan twitched her pretty nose and said in a spoiled manner, "You are old, but in terms of seniority, you are of the same generation as my father. I will be at a disadvantage if I call you Grandpa. Do you want to make the bet?" Patriarch Tian suddenly turned to the white haze. His eyes glowed as he said, "Okay, I will make the bet." Lady Dan was delighted. "Don't go back on your word, or I will burn down your house." Ha. Patriarch Tion laughed. Lady Dan, look, someone is coming out. Lady Dan and the others were taken aback. They turned to the white haze. The white haze parted and a young man in a cyan robe walked out. What? It's him. Lady Dan pulled a long face. It was the white-haired young man that she almost bumped into a couple of days ago. She pouted and said, "No, he cannot come to the Chamber of Relics. He does not count." Does not count? Luli had just stepped out of the formation of illusion when he heard Lady Dan's words. To ensure that he could enter the Chamber of Relics, he used the blood vine. In the time for half an incense stick to burn, he had the blood vine guide him out of the formation of illusion. Little did he expect that as soon as he came out, he would run into this unruly young lady who said that he could not join the Chamber of Relics. Luli was enraged. The stubbornness and pride in his bones were triggered. Glaring at Lady Dan, he said, "The Chamber of Relics, a super sect at the Southern Divinity, is treating the recruitment ceremony like a child's play." Patriarch Tion said that we should follow the rules. I'm following the rules. Where are the rules of the Chamber of Relics? By saying that the Chamber of Relics did not follow the rules, Luli was basically slapping Lady Dan in the face in public. He was implying that she had forgotten the public for personal reasons and had broken the Chamber of Relics' reputation. Lady Dan understood what Luli was implying. She glared at him and said, "Who do you think you are? How can you be so presumptuous? Do you have a death wish?" "Enough!" Patriarch Tion shouted. "Someone bring Lady Dan in. The Chamber of Relics has its own rules. I am in charge of this recruitment ceremony. Lady Dan, if you dare to make a scene again, I will report to the chief and punish you severely." Okay. Lady Dan burst into tears. She glared at Luli and then rushed into the Valley of Relics with the female warriors. Patriarch Tion calmed down a bit. Looking at Luli gently, he said, "Young man, the Chamber of Relics has its own rules. You have done well. You have passed the first test." Patriarch Tion was reasonable and polite. But Luli noticed that many disciples of the Chamber of Relics were looking at him with hostility. Thinking of that unruly Lady Dan, Luli had second thoughts. Chapter 1275. Luli stood on the side. He was struggling. He was in a dilemma. If he did not join the Chamber of Relics, he would not know where to run to. Given Cabinet of Cloud's influence, it was only a matter of time before they found him. By then, he would have to face dozens of mighty warriors and hundreds of immortals on the list. Not even the Emperor of Heaven Reverse could survive. If he joined the Chamber of Relics, he could imagine that his future would not be easy. He might be tortured to death by that unruly young lady. Lady Dan must have enjoyed a high status in the Chamber of Relics since she dared to speak so boldly in front of patriarchs. Patriarch Tion had scolded her in front of Luli. She must have cursed Luli for hundreds of times. Never mind. I will endure it. After much thought, Luli made up his mind and decided to stay. If he left the Chamber of Relics, he would die for sure. If he stayed, he might have a chance of survival. He could not risk his life, and he could not be impulsive. If he died, Jiang Qiling by Qiuxue and by Xiaoshuang would not be able to survive. Time moved on. More people came out from the haze. 2 hours later, 500 to 600 had come out. Okay, deactivate the formation. Patriarch Tion gave the order when the time was up. 10 disciples deactivated the formation. Those in there were crestfallen and disappointed. Okay, guys, you have failed this time. Please go back. Patriarch Tion waved his hand. Some warriors started to clear the place. Those people did not want to leave, but they left reluctantly. Originally, there were many people standing outside, but now more than half of them had left, leaving the place empty. Patriarch Tion looked to Luli and the hundreds and said, "Okay, next we will have the second test, which is to crack the formation. But this time, you will have to crack the formation alone, an entrapment formation. Each of you has the time for 1 incense stick to burn. You'll be lucky if you can get out of the entrapment formation in the time for 1 incense stick to burn. Let's begin. Set up the formation." Patriarch Tion waved his hand. Over 100 disciples moved. They went to the front and began to set up. In total, 100 disciples set up 100 small formations. Luli stared at them and observed every step. Once he knew how to set up the formation, it would be much easier for him to crack it. Luli watched carefully and committed every step to memory. His eyebrows were knitted together because the formation was not complicated at all. However, the materials used by the Divine Artifact Pavilion disciples were very special. What's more, they seemed to have the effect of strengthening the formation. The array looked very simple, but it was actually very strong. Once it was activated, it would be very difficult to break the array with brute force. Moreover, it would be done within the time it took for an incense stick to burn. If I use the war god skeleton, I should be able to break it in one move. Luli felt it was a shame. He could not use the warlord skeleton, the immortal's body, and the death Taoist. Given his abilities, it would be hard for him to crack the formation. All right, the first 100 will enter. Patriarch Tian saw that it was about time. He waved his hand, and Lu Li and the others walked into the small formation. The disciple outside poured out divine energy. A dark halo came out and covered Lu Li up. The world in front of Lu Li turned dark. He was trapped in a black halo. The only way to get out was to break the formation. Blood Fairy, break the formation. Lu Li was not worried when he saw the black halo. Instead, he was delighted. Those outside could not see what was going on inside, and Blood Fairy could hide better. Blood Fairy reached in with her tentacle. A moment later, Lu Li heard her voice in his mind. Master, this is strange. This formation is much easier than the first one. Even those who know something about formations can crack it. I think there is something wrong. Easier than the first one? Lu Li frowned. This did not make sense. The second one must be harder than the first one. Otherwise, what was the point of the test? Why couldn't they just let the hundreds of people pass? There must be something wrong. Don't move, Lu Li said after a moment of thought. Then he began to think. He used psychic power to check the small formation. He thought quickly, trying to figure out what the problem was. Time moved on. Lu Li was not worried at all. The formation could be cracked at any time. If he could not figure out what the problem was, he would not be able to pass the test even after he cracked the formation. I cannot pass. Lu Li suddenly slapped his head. He had an epiphany. He remembered Patriarch Tian's last words. Everyone had the time for one incense stick to burn. Walking out of the formation in the time for one incense stick to burn would be good enough. For the first one, Patriarch Tian made it clear that walking out of the formation in 2 hours was enough to pass the test. But for the second one, Patriarch Tian said walking out of the formation was good enough. In other words, walking out of the formation in the time for one incense stick to burn did not mean passing the second test. The formation could trap people, but it could also trap the mind. "What sly old fox," Lu Li exclaimed to himself. Usually, people would have the same mindset. The first one was to crack the formation, and the second one was to crack the formation as well. Time was tight. They would try their best to get out of the formation as soon as possible. Nobody noticed the trap in Patriarch Tian's words. To pass the second test, it seemed that the formation could not be cracked, or the time for one incense stick to burn must be passed. Lu Li made up his mind. He waited quietly. After the time for one incense stick to burn, he threw out some formation stones and poured out divine energy to let Blood Fairy crack the formation secretly. Buzzing, the dark shield disappeared. Almost at the same time, over 20 people had cracked the formation. They had almost reached the same time as Lu Li. As for the others, they had all cracked the formation. Okay, Patriarch Tian looked at Lu Li and the other over 20 people with a smile. You have passed the second test. The others who cracked the formation earlier have failed. What? The over 70 warriors who had cracked the formation earlier were stunned. They had been looking at Lu Li and the others with disdain. They did not expect that they would be the ones disqualified. Why, right? Didn't we crack the formation? I cracked it in the time for half an incense stick to burn. Why do we fail? That's right, that's right. Is the Chamber of Relics so unreasonable? Many people shouted at once, unwilling to accept the result. Some of them seemed to be thinking about something and regretted it. Did I say that cracking the formation in the time for one incense stick to burn can pass the test? Think back to what I said. Patriarch Tion said coldly, "You want to become craftsmen, but you cannot even see through a simple trap?" Inhibition formations are a setup and a trap. If you cannot even see through a word game, you will not have a bright future as craftsmen. Many people came back to their senses. None of them dared to shout anymore. They were still angry, but no one dared to talk back. "Let's go." Patriarch Tion waved his hand. The warriors started to drive away the over 70 people. Looking at the hundreds who had not taken the test, Patriarch Tion said, "It is your turn. 100 of you will start the second round." Lu Li and the other over 20 people looked at each other in relief. They knew something was wrong, and they remembered Patriarch Tion's words. That being said, it was a gamble for them to crack the formation after the time for one incense stick to burn. It was risky. Chapter 1276. The rest of the tests were of different styles. But there was one thing in common. There were all kinds of situations and traps. This level was not a test of one's ability to crack formations, but one's ability to solve situations. It was a test of one's ability to see through traps and plots. The result was tragic. Out of the 500 or 600 people, only about 100 passed the test. This was only the second test. If dozens of people were eliminated in the third test, only dozens of people would be able to join the Chamber of Relics out of the 10,000 people. The elimination rate was too high. Those who were eliminated would be driven away immediately. They would not even have the chance to watch the fun. When the last batch of people finished their assessment, Elder Tion waved his hand and said, "All right, those who passed the assessment, follow us into the Valley of Artifacts to begin the final round of assessment. As long as you pass, you will become a registered disciple of the Hall of Artifacts." They followed Patriarch Tion to the Valley of Relics. Over 100 disciples were guarding the perimeter. Clearly, they were on guard in case Lu Li and the others went in and caused trouble. Wow, the Valley of Relics is huge. As soon as Lu Li and the others entered the city, they saw many castles. The castles were not built close to each other. There were castles here and there. They could not see the end of the Valley of Relics. It did not look like a city, but a huge tribe formed by many villages. The view in the Valley of Relics was beautiful. There was even a stream. Lu Li and the others walked along the main road in the middle. They noticed something interesting. People in the Valley of Relics were busy. They walked in, but did not attract much attention. Many people were living in the castles and did not come out to watch the fun. Some people were in a hurry. They just threw a glance at Lu Li and the others, not paying much attention. The buildings in the Valley of Relics seemed to be unorganized, but the people here seemed to be busy. Many people were worried. Lulu even saw someone reading a book by the roadside. The others did not pay attention when they passed by. "It seems that everyone here is obsessed." Lulu nodded. The atmosphere in the Chamber of Relics was pleasant. Most of the people here must be craftsmen. All of them were focused on forging artifacts and inhibition formations. Being obsessed with something was the easiest way to achieve success. Otherwise, how could one make good relics? By playing around all day. The group walked for an hour before they finally arrived at a large square. There were numerous furnaces placed on the small square, and there were numerous tools and divine materials and crystals piled up on the ground at the side. Elder Tion led the crowd over. He glanced at the crowd and said, "The last assessment, refining weapons." As you all know, our artifact pavilion is famous in the south of the Divine Realm for our artifact refining. Equipment refiners have a prominent status everywhere. If you want to join our artifact pavilion, you must have some understanding of artifact refining. The last assessment is artifact refining. Of course, I won't ask you to refine a divine artifact. You only need to refine a divine artifact embryo within 3 days. We will evaluate the artifact embryos you make and choose the best half. The best half will be able to join our artifact pavilion. As for the remaining half, I'll have to ask you to leave with regret. so please do your best this time. Lee's expressions changed. He knew nothing about forging artifacts. All the books he read from Tian Lingzi were about inhibition formations. There were many books about forging in that hall, but he hadn't read a single one of them. Oh no, Li felt bitter to see that many people had a well-thought-out plan. Everyone here should have come prepared. He was the only one who came here without knowing anything. Of course, the Chamber of Relics was recruiting disciples to test their basic skills. Those people must have learned to forge artifacts for some time. He was the only one who knew nothing. What should I do? Li frowned. Was he going to fail on the verge of success? What should he do if he could not join the Chamber of Relics? Nearly 100 people would be working on artifacts at the same time. In 3 days, the final products would be presented for evaluation. The better half would stay, and the worse half would leave. He did not even know how to forge artifacts. What could he make? He didn't even know how to operate those furnaces. Sage asterisk T. I will have to learn on the spot. Li thought about it. He had no other choice but to learn secretly. He could only learn from the people around him how to forge tools. He wanted to see if he could forge a tool embryo within 3 days. Okay, let's pick a furnace. Patriarch Tian waved his hand and added, "We have prepared dozens of materials and crystals for you. You can refine any embryo you want. You can decide the details. We only care about the result, the quality of the product. Okay, start the countdown." Many people picked a furnace in a hurry and began to check the furnace, the materials and crystals in preparation. Li picked a furnace in the middle. He pretended to check the materials while he used psychic power to check the surroundings. Someone had turned on the furnace. Li checked with psychic power to see how the furnace was turned on. While Li was observing others, he did not know that many people were observing him as well. Those who were observing him were not the participants, but those from the Chamber of Relics. Patriarch Tian and the others would check with psychic power from time to time. Li was the first in the first round, and he was one of the first to pass the second round. Given his conflict with Lady Dan, it was hard for him not to attract attention. What? Patriarch Tian and the others noticed that Li had been checking the materials without doing anything. He was even secretly looking around. Does he not know how to forge artifacts? Patriarch Tian had a question. If Li knew how to forge artifacts, why was he looking around? Why was he not doing anything when others had started? More than half of the nearly 100 people had turned on the furnace. The others began to take action as well. Finally, Li did something. He opened the lid of the furnace and poured out some divine energy. However, he failed. Well, he has never learned how to forge artifacts. Li pretended to be calm, but his palms were sweating. He poured out more divine energy, but he could not even turn on the switch under the furnace. Li poured out some divine energy, but the furnace did not respond. He calmed down and observed how the others were going to turn on the furnace. Soon, he found the problem. He pretended to turn on the switch. Finally, the furnace was turned on. Many disciples of the Chamber of Relics sneered. To them, Lady Dan was a goddess. Li had offended their goddess. Naturally, they would not like him. They were gloating that Li did not even know how to turn on the furnace. A man who did not know how to forge artifacts, even if he could make prototypes, would be of the lowest quality. Go and find out more about this man. A handsome young man with dashing eyebrows winked at a disciple. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes. If Li had no background, he could find a chance to avenge Lady Dan after he failed the test and was expelled. Chapter 1277. SH asterisk T, SH asterisk T, SH asterisk T. In a hurry, Li threw in some crystals. However, the fire was so strong that his clothes were almost burnt. He was covered in soot. He had been secretly learning for half a day. Some people had made a basic prototype and were starting to refine it. However, he had not mastered the proper control of the stove yet. If he could not control the stove well, the fire could die out at any time, let alone making a prototype. If he could not control the stove well, the fire could go out at any time, let alone making a prototype. More and more people had made prototypes and started to refine them. Luli was getting impatient. It had been more than half a day. He had figured out the steps, but theory was different from practice. It was troublesome. One mistake, and the whole process would be ruined. Let's have a try. Luli scratched his head. He followed the steps of a warrior next to him and began to forge artifacts. First, he stabilized the stove and then followed the steps of the warrior next to him, throwing in materials and other strange materials. No, I made a mistake. Luli threw in a small black crystal. He suddenly remembered that the crystal should be thrown into the fire. He was filled with regret. Bang! The cauldron suddenly let out a muffled explosion. Then, the lid of the cauldron flew up into the sky, and the boiling hot molten iron inside splashed out. The people nearby were so frightened that they quickly dodged to the side. Patriarch Tion and the others were speechless. The stove exploded? It seemed that Luli knew nothing about forging artifacts. Not even the most basic prototype could be made at this level. Haha. The handsome young man behind Patriarch Tion sneered. He had already sentenced Luli to death. How could he get into the Chamber of Relics when he was so weak? In his dreams. Again, Luli did not give up. While observing others, he tried again and again. He did not believe that he could not make a basic prototype in 3 days. Luli turned on the stove again. Bit by bit, he was careful. But after 1 day, he had tried 5 times and failed all 5 times. There was a huge gap between theory and practice. He knew all the steps. However, the fire, the order of materials, the timing, and the amount of divine energy all had to be coordinated. It seemed simple, but it was very easy to make mistakes without putting it into practice. Once a mistake was made, it would be almost impossible to successfully refine a tool embryo. After a day and a half, many people had already refined a perfect tool embryo and started to inscribe array formations and restrictions on it. Although there was no requirement to refine a divine artifact, being able to inscribe an array formation restriction on it would definitely add points. The higher the level and the more powerful the restriction array, the higher the chance of standing out. Luli took a look. Half of them had made perfect prototypes and were carving inhibition formations and inhibition formations. The expressions on the remaining people's faces were already unsightly. By the time they refined a perfect artifact embryo, the other party would have already inscribed high-level arrays and restrictions on it. When that time came, they would definitely have no hope of winning. Luli and the other two were making the slowest progress. Luli hadn't made anything while the other two had made prototypes, but the quality was poor. Now, they had to start again. Sigh, I don't care. I'll just do whatever I want. Luli had given up all hope. He was ready to make some random thing. It seemed that he was out of the question. More than half of the people had made perfect prototypes. Luli would be eliminated for sure. Even though it was a hopeless situation, it still took him a day to successfully refine a tool embryo. It had been 2.5 days, and he had barely made a prototype, and it was a dark ball. The black ball was ugly. It was not smooth on the outside, and it had spikes. It was rough. Compared to other people's prototypes, it was like the difference between a supreme relic and a quasi-relic. I don't have time to refine it. Luli saw that he had half a day left. If he wanted to refine it, it would take him more than half a day. What was more, it might go wrong, and he wouldn't even be able to hand in the finished product. Phew. Luli put out the fire and sat on the ground. He held the black ball in his hand, lost in thought. He didn't care about the test anymore. What was on his mind now was what he should do after he failed the test. Patriarch Tion and the others shook their heads when they saw Luli holding the black ball in a daze. He was a promising young man. It was a pity that he had never learned how to forge artifacts systematically. The others paid no more attention to Luli. After all, the Chamber of Relics had its own rules. Luli's things were not presentable. Nobody dared to side with him, not even if he was talented in inhibition formations. Never mind. I will take it one step at a time. Astro Emperor once said that everyone's fate is predetermined. If the heavens want me to die, there is no point in me struggling. Luli shook his head after a while. All of a sudden, someone next to him shouted, "Sage Asterisk T, this freak." He has built such a powerful formation. He will pass the test. Luli looked over and saw a man holding an embryo of a sword in his hand. The embryo of the sword was covered with dense lines. It seemed that the formation was about to be engraved. Inscribe formations? Luli frowned. If he could engrave a powerful formation on the black ball, he might get more points. Unfortunately, Luli had no idea how to engrave profound inhibition formations. He had read many books and had some understanding of inhibition formations, but he had never learned how to forge artifacts systematically. He had no idea how to engrave profound inhibition formations. Wait, Luli suddenly remembered something. He did not know how to engrave profound inhibition formations, but someone else did. Blood Fairy had a great talent in inhibition formations. If he could engrave a random formation and ask Blood Fairy to modify it for him, wouldn't he be able to engrave a profound inhibition formation? Blood Fairy, Luli said to Blood Fairy at once. I have a problem. I am forging an artifact, and I need to engrave inhibition formations in it. But I can only engrave the simplest inhibition formations. Can you modify them for me and make them more powerful? Luli explained in detail. Blood Fairy understood, but she was not sure. I don't know the details. I can only say that I will try my best. Blood Fairy's innate divine power allowed her to merge her tentacles into the inhibition formation to control the inhibition formation. If she could have complete control over the inhibition formations Luli engraved and make subtle changes, she might be able to succeed. Luli thought about it and decided to engrave a spirit-gathering formation of the lowest level. He had read about such formations in the books left behind by Tian Lingzi. It was easy to engrave one. He pretended to be in a trance. His hand glowed with divine energy as he poured it into the embryo. Using the method he learned from Tian Lingzi's books, he began to engrave inhibition formations. The spirit-gathering formation was simple. In less than an hour, Luli had done it. He took out the wicked bead and held it in his hand. Bloodvine reached out from the wicked bead and into the iron ball through his hand. After a while, Blood Fairy retracted her tentacles and said, Master, this inhibition formation is too simple. It is pointless to change it. How about you engrave 5 more spirit-gathering formations, and I will try to make some changes. 5? Luli frowned. Even if he engraved 100 spirit-gathering formations of such a low level, the effect would not be compounded. But since Blood Fairy had said so, Luli did it quickly. In 4 hours, he had engraved 5 more spirit-gathering formations. The iron ball was now filled with lines and patterns. Blood Fairy, it is up to you, Luli said to Blood Fairy. She reached out her tentacles to try. Luli used psychic power to check around. Nobody was paying attention to him. Everyone seemed to be certain that he had been eliminated. Okay. It would be best if no one was paying attention to him. Luli waited quietly, feeling extremely nervous. An hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. Chapter 1278. Time's up. When the time was up, Patriarch Tian shouted. Everyone stood up. Patriarch Tian waved his hand and said, Line up and hand in your prototypes. We have 10 patriarchs here, and they will judge fairly. The first few people walked toward the 10 patriarchs. More people started to line up. But those in the front were those who had perfect prototypes or those who thought the inhibition formations were better. As for those who did not feel good about themselves, they were at the back. They were not confident enough. If they handed in their prototypes now, they would be judged as poor. Luli did not walk in the front. His black ball was of poor quality. Even though the inhibition formations were put in, Blood Fairy did not say how well they were modified. Perhaps not even Blood Fairy herself could tell if the modification was good or bad. After all, Blood Fairy was not a human being and did not know much. Good. This sword is excellent. Patriarch Tian held a prototype sword. He was the one Luli saw. His prototype was perfect, and the inhibition formations were good as well. Luli could tell by looking at the patterns. This saber is excellent as well. This piece of armor is average. This bow is interesting. Excellent. The judges were fast. After all, the 10 patriarchs had been working at the Chamber of Relics for a long time. They had spent their whole lives making artifacts. They could tell the quality of the inhibition formations and prototypes right away. This one is inferior. Well, he can be eliminated right away. Some unlucky ones were eliminated after one look from a patriarch, which meant that their products were not good enough for the patriarchs to think highly of them. Luli was nervous. Many prototypes had been evaluated as excellent. There were more than 20 of them. When a number of prototypes reached 50, those at the back would not stand a chance. The patriarchs were fair in evaluating prototypes. Every prototype would be evaluated by 3 people. In this way, no one would be eliminated because of a patriarch's mistake or personal preference. More and more people stepped forward. Luli was at the back of the line. Many disciples of the Chamber of Relics looked at him with contempt. Luli held a black iron ball in his hands. There were spikes and bumps on it, and it looked really ugly. More and more people were evaluated as excellent, and some were eliminated. Luli and the others still had more than 20 people. More than 40 prototypes had been evaluated as excellent, more than half of them. Most of the others were frustrated. They were not confident in their products. They would all be eliminated. As expected, there were also 2 or 3 people who were lucky enough to be evaluated as excellent, and some people were evaluated as average. Under normal circumstances, there was still some hope for those in the middle class, but those in the lower class would basically be eliminated. It was finally Luli's turn. Luli walked over to Patriarch Tion after some thoughts. He had a good impression of this patriarch. He had just scolded Lady Dan. He must be a man with strong principles. Hello, Elder Tion. This is the tool, Embryo, that I refined. Luli bowed with respect and then picked up the iron ball with both hands. Patriarch Tion frowned, but he took over the iron ball. Little brother, it seems like you haven't learned how to forge weapons. Patriarch Tion took a casual look and then looked up at Luli, who nodded and said, Yes, I have always been interested in forging artifacts. It is a pity that I don't have a good teacher, so I have never learned it. Luli admitted it openly. Patriarch Tion nodded. Then he used divine energy to sense the formation inside. Patriarch Tion could tell that Luli had done it. What? A moment later, Patriarch Tion was taken aback. His eyes glowed as he murmured, How, what? The other patriarchs were alarmed by Patriarch Tion's strange behavior. One of them asked, Brother Tion, what is it? What is it that makes you so surprised? Old son, take a look at the engraved arrays inside. Elder Tion paused for a moment and passed the metal ball to Elder Sunday. Elder Sun received it doubtfully and used his divine power to sense it. Soon, his face was filled with surprise and confusion. After a while, he shook his head and said, I don't understand. I don't understand. Old Lu, why don't you take a look? The metal ball was passed to the next elder, and the result was the same. The next elder had a confused look on his face as he passed the metal ball to another elder. What? Luli was confused as well. Could it be that Blood Fairy had altered the 6 spirit gathering formations and caused a huge change in them? Not even the patriarchs of Chamber of Relics could understand it. Was this a good thing or a bad thing? After the 10 elders finished looking at it, they returned the metal ball to Elder Tion. The 10 of them gathered together and activated a soundproof barrier. One of the elders said thoughtfully, Old Tion, this method of setting up the formation doesn't seem to be the orthodox method. Is it more like the turbulent streams of flows from the primordial era? Yes, I have the same feeling. Another patriarch added, This method is strange. There are no rules to it. It seems to be random, but it turns out to be marvelous. 6 spirit gathering formations. Elder Tion concluded they were originally the lowest grade of spirit gathering formations, but with some changes to the formation lines and patterns, the 6 spirit gathering formations actually fused together. The power has been increased by 30 times. It seems to be messy, but it is ingeniously resonating. Apart from the turbulent streams, there is no other explanation. Buzzing. Patriarch Tion deactivated the soundproof shield. Looking at Luli, he asked, Where did you learn this method? Where did you learn it? Luli touched his nose in embarrassment. He could not say that Blood Fairy changed it for him. He could not say that he read Tian Lingzi's book collection. Otherwise, the Chamber of Relics would kill him and take the wicked bead away. After all, those patriarchs would be interested in those books. He could only vaguely explain, I once saved a crazy old man. While he was recuperating, he taught me some formations and formation techniques. Crazy old man? Patriarch Tian and the others looked at each other in confusion. One patriarch asked, what is his name? Where is he now? Luli shook his head in confusion. He left a long time ago. He said his name is the crippled Zen master, and he is crazy. The crippled Zen master? Everyone was even more confused because no one had ever heard of this person's name. Luli found it funny. He knew the crippled Zen master from the mortal world. How could they know him? Patriarch Tian turned on the soundproof shield again. Guys, what should we do with this guy? His artifact embryo is not up to standard at all. However, the formations and restrictions carved on it are very interesting. Furthermore, this person is so young. He might have great achievements in the field of artifact forging. I personally agree to let him join the Divine Artifact Pavilion. Another patriarch sneered, Brother Tian, this guy has only scratched the surface. Also, if we take him in, I am afraid that Dan will come after him later. By then, the entire Valley of Relics will be in chaos. I think, let's just forget about it. Right? Chapter 1279. But another patriarch soon added, that Dan girl just likes to fool around. She's not a bad person. It's not a big deal. We can talk to her, and she will be fine. I think this kid is good. He was the fastest of the first test, and he is so young. It means that he is talented in this aspect. He has never learned to forge artifacts, and yet, he can make one in such a short time. That in itself is a problem. What's more, he may be learning chaotic formations. If he can find something good in this aspect, it will be good for the Chamber of Relics. Such things can be passed down and will be treasures. Yes, another patriarch said, the Chamber of Relics is a place of rules. Since this young man has passed all 3 tests, why don't we take him in? Are we going to let the Chamber of Relics down? Who will join the Chamber of Relics in the future? The prototype artifact in the 3rd test is not good, but the formations are brilliant. Who can say no if we give him an excellent one? The other patriarchs looked at each other. Patriarch, he was the most inflexible of them all. He would argue with anyone who dared to raise doubts for a day and a night. If no one has any objections, then let him pass. Patriarch Tian made up his mind. I will speak to the chief in person about Lady Dan. She is a genius, but she is ill-tempered. She will get into trouble if we continue to indulge her. We cannot turn away a promising young man because of Dan Girl. This is against the rules of the Chamber of Relics. Since Patriarch Tian had said so, the others would not say anything else. Patriarch Tian deactivated the shield and looked at Lu Li gently. What is his name? He passed. Lu Li was overjoyed. None of the patriarchs asked for the names of the participants. He was the first. Lu Li answered at once. Patriarch Tian, my name is Lu Li. For the first time, Lu Li gave his real name. The Chamber of Relics was so prestigious that Yin Tiangang, god of wings, god of barbarian, and god of sorcerer, could not afford to offend the Chamber of Relics. As for the Cabinet of Cloud, if they found out that he was Lu Li, he could not use an alias. It would be awkward to use an alias. Therefore, Lu Li decided to use his real name. Good Lu Li. Patriarch Tian smiled gently. You are accepted. From today on, you are a registered disciple of the Chamber of Relics. What? Even though Lu Li was mentally prepared, he was still overjoyed. From this, it could be seen that some elders of the Chamber of Relics were decent. They didn't hate him because of Lady Dan, which meant they had principles and a bottom line. At the very least, Lu Li didn't have to worry about being assassinated in the Chamber of Relics. Even if Miss Dan deliberately made things difficult for him, it was better to be wronged than to be hunted by the High Cloud School. The 100 or so people were in an uproar. The prototype that Lu Li had made was so ugly and of such a low level. It looked like a complete waste, but he was the first to be accepted. Naturally, many people expressed their dissatisfaction and began to mutter. Silence. Elder Tion snorted coldly. Then, he held the iron ball and infused his divine power into it. Very quickly, the iron ball lit up and the surrounding spiritual energy of the world began to fluctuate, rushing towards the iron ball in a frenzy. Many people's expressions changed slightly. The spirit-gathering ability of this iron ball was so abnormal that it was impossible for them to refine it. Many people's expressions changed when they saw Lu Li. He was so young, and he had already achieved so much in the field of inhibition formations. His future was limitless. Thank you, Patriarch Tion. Thank you, Patriarchs. Lu Li cupped his fists and bowed, neither humble nor overbearing. Then he stood on the side. Many disciples of the Chamber of Artifacts looked at Lu Li with hostility again, especially the young man with dashing eyebrows and bright eyes. They had thought that Lu Li would not be chosen. They did not expect that Lu Li would become a fellow disciple of the same sect. The young man snorted. Gradually, he calmed down. So what if Lu Li had joined the Chamber of Relics? If he offended Lady Dan, Lu Li would suffer. By then, he would not be able to take it and would have to leave in disgrace. When everyone was done, the patriarchs began to discuss. In the end, they relaxed the requirements. All the prototypes that were rated as excellent could pass the test directly. Another one that was rated as average was selected as well. It was said that this person's inhibition formations had merit. The rest were all banished from the Valley of Relics. Out of the tens of thousands of people, only 56 were accepted. The rest were delighted. The Chamber of Relics was not one of the 72 sections. However, it had a special status in Southern Divinity. Even the 72 sects and some hidden forces did not dare to offend the Chamber of Relics. When disciples of the Chamber of Relics went out, they would receive the best treatment. Disciples of other forces would have to treat them with respect. That was because the Chamber of Relics was not only backed by the Craftsman sect, but also the largest relic maker in the divinity. To get the best relic, one had to go to the Craftsman sect. However, the Craftsman sect would usually charge a high price. Not even the mighty warriors in the divinity could afford the price. Not everyone could afford the Craftsman sect. Therefore, they had to go to the Chamber of Relics. Everyone had their own habits and favorite relic. Many powerful warriors or disciples of famous sects liked to have their favorite relic customized. To have a customized relic, one had to go to the Chamber of Relics. If one offended the Chamber of Relics and wanted to buy a large number of relic, there would be nowhere to buy them in Southern Divinity. One would have to pay a high price elsewhere. Relic included relic weapons, relic armors, soul-protecting relics, and other relics with special abilities. Those could be bought at the Chamber of Relics and could be customized. Another thing was that the Chamber of Relics had more than just relic. There were also many experts who knew about array formations and restriction spells. Your sect needed to set up all kinds of powerful array formations, right? Those array formations needed maintenance, right? Those array formations needed to be repaired, right? If they couldn't solve those problems, they would need the help of the Chamber of Relics. Therefore, the Chamber of Relics had a high status in the Southern Divinity. The disciples of the Chamber of Relics naturally had a high status too. Another thing was that the Chamber of Relics was too rich. They made so many relic every year, which brought them a huge amount of divine source. Therefore, the disciples of the Chamber of Relics were very rich. Their cultivation conditions were better than those of the 72 holy sects. There was another good thing about the Chamber of Relics. The disciples could leave the sect after they finished learning. As long as they didn't spread what they learned, the Chamber of Relics wouldn't pursue the matter. Once they did, they would be dead for sure. Even if the Chamber of Relics used a huge amount of divine source to kill you, the 72 holy sects wouldn't be able to protect you. Therefore, when someone became an immortal craftsman or a master craftsman, they would choose to leave their sect and join a force or a sect. They could become a patriarch or a guardian deity of that force or sect. They could do whatever they wanted in that force or sect and live a carefree life. All right, Long and High, help the registered disciples settle down. Patriarch Tian glanced at Lu Li and the others. He waved his hand to the young man with dashing eyebrows and said, "Then, send them to their respective departments. Follow the rules. Do you understand?" "Yes, Patriarch Tian." Long Yunhai cupped his fists. Lu Li looked at Long Yunhai. Lu Li's heart skipped a beat when he remembered the cold look in Long Yunhai's eyes. Patriarch Tian had asked this young man to make arrangements. Lu Li was afraid that he wouldn't have a good life in the future. Would Long Yunhai send him to clean the latrines for a few years? Some of them suggested that Sixley should cook in the kitchen for 100 years. Some suggested that Sixley should take care of horses, and some even suggested that Sixley should scan the toilet for 1,000 years. The group of young ladies were the daughters and granddaughters of the elders. They were all devils in human form. Naturally, they wanted to vent their anger when they were bullied. Their hearts were not particularly bad, but they were just a group of spoiled children. Lady Dan looked a bit better. She rolled her phoenix eyes, and suddenly her eyes lit up. She said, "None of your ideas are good. I think we should send him to Old Freak Goo. He will be tortured to death. Ancient monster." The people in the small hall immediately fell silent. This name seemed to have some kind of magical power, causing all the young ladies to turn pale and feel a chill run down their spines. One of them said, "Elder Goo, wasn't it a little too harsh to send him over?" With Elder Goo's temper, the disciple he sent last time really went crazy. "Humph. Ah!" Lady Dan snorted angrily. "Who told her to offend me? I've never been scolded in public since I was a kid. This bastard made me lose face. If I can't vent my anger, I won't be able to refine weapons in the future." "Good." Long Yunhai nodded heavily and said, "As long as you're happy, I will send him to Elder Goo. Isn't he proud of his powerful inhibition formations? Elder Goo is one of the top elders in our faction. Sending him to Elder Goo will let him learn some good stuff. Lady Dan, you guys talk. I'll make the arrangements now." "Hee hee, Brother Hai is the best." Lady Dan smiled sweetly. Long Yunhai was dazed for a while. The other young ladies all looked gloomy when they saw Long Yunhai's expression. In their eyes, Long Yunhai was the best lover, but he was obsessed with Lady Dan. However, Lady Dan was a rare genius in refining weapons. She was beautiful and had a high social status. It was normal that Long Yunhai liked her. Long Yunhai walked out and walked around. He got the information of the missing members in each hall. Then he walked back to the main hall. The disciples here had compiled the list of all the registered disciples and recorded the information of Lu Li and the others. "All right." Long Yunhai glanced at them and began to read the list. Lu Iha, Fong Yang, asterisk, 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 Li Qiani, Qi Guan Yue. The 10 of you go to the Hall of Celestial Artifacts. Long Yunha, take them there. The Hall of Celestial Artifacts? The 10 of them were delighted. The Hall of Celestial Artifacts was a very important hall in the Chamber of Relics. Most of the relics there were made by the Hall of Celestial Artifacts. The resources there were abundant. Even though they could only do odd jobs there, they could learn a lot. After a few years, they could become official disciples and take part in refining weapons. Hu Bishui, Jifeng Yuming, Huang Hu, Lu Shi, the 20 of you go to the Hall of Celestial Artifacts. Long Yanshan, take them there. Long Yanhai named another 20 people. The 10 of them looked a bit gloomy. The Hall of Celestial Artifacts was a big hall, but it was not as important as the Hall of Celestial Artifacts. The Hall of Celestial Artifacts was in charge of the materials of the divine materials and the tripods. The 10 of them could only do odd jobs there. However, they were all right-in disciples. When they first entered the Divine Artifact Pavilion, they would be doing the dirtiest and most tiring jobs. It would take at least a few years for them to succeed. The 10 of them understood the situation, but they could not help but feel disappointed. Zhao Daiming, Chao, Xiuqing, Tang Tao, Wang Huateng. People kept being sent to the various halls. Some of them seemed to have connections inside and were assigned to serve certain elders. Some were even sent to the battle hall. The battle hall in the Divine Artifact Pavilion had almost no chance to fight. No one dared to offend the Divine Artifact Pavilion. Hence, the battle hall was not very good. More and more people left. Only 7 of them were left. The 10 of them started to feel nervous. They had already sent people to the big halls, so where would the rest of them be arranged to go? No one could be sure. Sigh. Luli sighed slightly. Long Yunhai did not look at him. It seemed fair and just, but Luli knew that Long Yunhai already had a plan. Luli could only wait to suffer. Luli. A moment later, Long Yunhai shouted a name. Luli looked up and met Long Yunhai's eyes. He knew that this would happen sooner or later. Long Yunhai paused and scanned a few people around Luli. Then, he pointed at one of them and said, Qian Huan Han, you and Luli will go to Elder Gu's place. Listen to Elder Gu's orders and arrangements. Elder Gu? Luli was slightly shocked. Long Yunhai did not send him to clean the toilet or guard the cemetery. Instead, he sent him to an elder's place? Why was Long Yunhai treating him so well? This did not make sense. Elder Gu? The few disciples around Long Yunhai's face changed. 3 of the 7 people around Lu Li's face also changed. They looked at Lu Li and Qian Huan Han with pity. Qian Huan Han looked a little silly. He scratched his head in confusion. Lu Li's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that this Elder Gu was not easy to serve. Not only would he not be able to learn anything from Elder Gu, but he would also have a miserable life. In a chapter that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.